Okay, hello again, everybody. Welcome back. I'm here with Lily, aka PharaohHazard, and we finally gotten to the point where we're talking about the sequel trilogy. So I don't know. There's a lot of adjectives we could use to describe how people felt about the sequel trilogy.
Anticipated?
Yeah, much anticipated.
Much anticipated?
Much,
Let's start positively.
Yeah, much anticipated. So there's a lot to talk about. There's a few things I wanted to talk about, just like in the context of like how the sequel trilogy even like got made, what all went into it, and like how we even got to the point where we are now, basically with Star Wars. Because that journey in and of itself is like kind of wild, and then the journey of the sequel trilogy becomes kind of wild. Especially like I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Like I feel like people lost it's so quick, like people lost the context of like where we were at, like with the prequels. People fucking hated the prequels. Like
they did not go over very well.
No, by the time like right before the Revenge of the Sith came out, there was almost a universal kind of like disdain for what George Lucas had done. And that was kind of the context of what led up to the first sequel film, was this disdain, really, like honestly. And it's like kind of, I don't know. It's kind of funny how quickly people turn on anything. It's like they almost forgot like how bad things were. It's like, oh wait, I have a new enemy to be angry at.
People like being outraged though, and if you're the only one who's not outraged, then you're the outlier, you're the black sheep. So everyone just has their own. I mean, I've definitely fallen into that trap before.
Yeah,
people,
I mean,
like being outraged by something, especially in this day and age when you can so easily tell people how pissed you are all the time.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think is definitely true is like, unfortunately, especially in online sort of media discourse, like there's that quote, like Yoda talks about the dark side. It's more seductive. It's not more powerful, but it's more seductive. And I think that's true of discourse that's negative. It's not better, but it's easier to do. It's easier to kind of get a following around it. And there's an entire internet ecosystem around creating negativity about whatever fandom. Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. Those come to my mind.
Like there's hate channels, there's hate pages, there's hate accounts. That's like hate watching is a thing. Like it's a genuine thing. Like people like, and I've definitely done it. Well, at least with me, whenever I watch something that people are hating, I try and find something good to like about it. Just something, one little thing can make me realize, okay, I kind of see where they were going with
it. Yeah. But yeah, there became like a dedicated, sort of, I don't know what you would call it, of people who just like started turning on the films. And like when we talk about the next film in this trilogy, oh man, you talk about a fandom menace. Holy shit. So kind of just to talk about like the big overview of like how this happened. So the prequel trilogy happens. That ends in 2005. George Lucas kind of muddles around with an idea of making a sequel trilogy, but he's never really dedicated to it. Like at the time, he wanted to make this TV show, it was like Star Wars Underworld, something like that, and it would have had to do with Boba Fett and kind of the gangster universe of the Star Wars universe. And some of those ideas then got integrated into The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and stuff like that. And so then in 2012, he decides, okay, I'm out. I'm going to sell Star Wars to Disney. And they get acquired for it was like $4.5 billion was the number at the time. So Kathleen Kennedy gets appointed as the head of Lucasfilm. And so she is the one who's tasked with putting together this new trilogy. And part of what they did was some of the materials they got was George Lucas had these treatments that he wrote for 7, 8, and 9. And so from what I read, just started seeing like what the treatment was about. So his treatment, at least there's like a couple of ideas that were there basically. So one of them was it would mainly be about Princess Leia rebuilding the Republic and Luke's restarting the Jedi, and it would have taken place like right after, like basically right after Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Which also kind of does. This is sort of like interesting too because like this is before we had like the technology of deep faking and de-aging.
Yeah,
which also
I don't think that would have worked really well if it's supposed to be taking place right after. I mean, like 40 years has passed.
Yeah. In real lifetime, it's been 30 years has passed. And again, one of the other things that unfortunately happens is that Carrie Fisher dies in 2016, I think she passed away. And so that's again another. We'll talk about this too, like I guess like why the requel, as they call it now, like why you kind of do that, why that sort of form of a legacy sequel became so popular. And older actors are more expensive. Older actors have their own ideology about their characters.
Older actors might just want to do it. They might just be like, that was 40 years ago. No, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was kind of like the big thing about his idea. The main villain that would have come back would have been Darth Maul. Darth Maul would have had an apprentice called Darth Talon. And those two would have been like the main antagonists. And so he had this quote, I had planned the first trilogy to be about the father, the second trilogy to be about the son, and the third trilogy to be about the daughter and the grandchildren. And so another part of this would have been the whole, the whole family. Like, I forget, but in like what they call now the legacy canon, or the Star Wars legacy, which was like the novels that accompanied the books directly after Star Wars was made, and there wasn't a lot of content, but there was books. I think that Han and Leia had like 3 kids. It was like Jason, Jyan, and Anakin. It was something like that. They had 3 kids.
I remember hearing something about that because my brothers really liked a lot of the standalone Star Wars expanded universe stuff. I never read any of it though. Never got around to it. Yeah, there ended up being quite a bit of books. Some of them good, some of them bad. Some of them, I think Chewie gets killed because they throw a moon at him. Some weird shit. Yeah, I'm serious. That happened. The BUGU.
Exactly. Some of that is some shit that just needs to be tossed. Like that can't be canon. Sorry. Let's see here. So Lucas also revealed he would have settled the ongoing debate about which member of the Skywalker family was truly the chosen one. The Jedi prophesized, and the answer would have been it was Leia. Leia was the chosen one.
She's the only one who doesn't fuck shit up. She actually gets shit done.
Which is really interesting too, because like there's that whole thing right in Empire where it's like Luke disobeys them, and they're like, "Oh, don't worry, there is another."
There's another.
Yeah, and
because Leia's the one who gets shit done.
She's the actual chosen one.
She would have finished her. Leia would have finished her training.
Yeah,
I bet that if she was presented with the fact that Han and Luke were in danger, she would have been like, but I need to be ready.
Yeah. And they would have died, but there would have been a different outcome. So
yeah, would have been a different outcome. Yeah, Leia was the one always getting shit done.
She was
fucking anything. Well, even Vader in Return of the Jedi is using Leia against him. He's just like, oh, you got a sister, and she's gotten away from me a lot. She's pretty smart,
but not next time. No, I'll just kill you and take her.
Yeah, I'll just kill you and take her because you're just a petty little bitch. I love Luke.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make anybody think that I think Luke sucks or anything like that. I love Luke Skywalker, but there's a reason why Leia's like a badass, and it's I miss.
And that's what's kind of nice about Luke is like his path is actually not that clear. Like,
no, it's not very clear. No, not at all. Leia's always had like a pretty clear idea of what she's doing and where she's going.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why Empire is so good. Is like he makes some bad choices, and he gets his hand chopped off, and
Yeah,
he
and
kind
all
of
of that
cries about it. You know?
and all of that is necessary for his character's journey.
Yeah.
All of that is necessary. You know, like you have to make some mistakes, especially with like a middle movie where he makes all of them. So by the time we get to the third one, it's just like, okay, he is ready. He is truly come at that point, at least, full circle.
Yeah. And so the other part of what he wanted to do, and this is kind of the wacky ass part, is that he wanted to double down on midichlorians.
No.
Yeah, he
George,
wanted to
let it go.
he wanted to double down on that.
George,
double down.
Let it die.
Yeah. So he did an interview in 2018 with James Cameron, and he talked about the midichlorians weren't alone in the microbiology of force sensitive individuals. There was also the wills, WHILLS, the physical representation of the force. And so the wills, Lucas explained, are the ones who act to control the universe. They feed off the force. Life forms, meanwhile, be they the Jedi or the Sith or bounty hunters or mechanisms or whatever, are simply vehicles for the wills to travel around in. And the conduit is the midichlorians. The midichlorians are the ones that communicate the wills. The wills, in general sense, they are the force. So this was like some microbiological beings who control force sensitive. Like, what the fuck is this
I think he's making it more complicated than it needs to be. First of all of that sounds like he just made it up on the spot. Second of all, it's not that deep, bro. But third, I don't want to shit on someone else's world building. It's his. That's fine. It's his world building. It's okay. But like, let it go. No one is on the midichlorian bandwagon except you, George. But again, it's like it's his world building. Yeah, it's fine. But like, oh Lord.
Lucas confessed a lot of fans would have hated it. Yeah. At least he's like he understands. Like,
there's
oh yeah, if they hated the prequels, they would have fucking hated this.
That gives me a little hope, because at least he was self-aware enough to be like, yeah, they would have hated it though. You know?
But that was his thing. And then later in this article, it talks about the journey of the wills was mentioned in the novelization of The Force Awakens, and Donnie Yen's Chirrut Imwe was called the Guardian of the Wills in Rogue One. Both of those are references to which seem to indicate that the wills are a people or religion rather than microscopic creatures who treat the force as their lifeblood. And then later it talks about this now non-canonical take on the wills was more in line with Lucas's super early version of Star Wars. First draft of what would eventually become the screenplay for A New Hope had on-screen story being recounted via the Journal of the Wills, was the name for it. The collection of notes of individuals, not microorganisms. So that's that. Yeah. Like the original name for Star Wars was like it was like Star Wars: A Story of the Journey of the Wills or some weird shit like that. And like there was like a second crawl which was about the Journal of the Will. Wacky shit. Crazy. But it just shows he's had these crazy ideas in his head since like 1975.
And again, it's his world building. That's fine. You know, whatever. I, from my own personal, just trying to write an outline to world build. It gets freaking complicated really fucking fast. But like, it sounds overtly complicated. It sounds extremely complicated. You know, one of the nice things about the original movies is that the Force was a mystery. You know, up until, you know, Yoda explains it a little bit more. And even freaking Obi-Wan's like, oh, it moves through us and it's all around us and it binds everything together. Like, cool, that's some hippy dippy Buddhist shit I can get behind. Like, cool.
Yeah, it's very Eastern religion, and like
which was just super popular in the 1970s.
It's just Buddhism. Cool. And the concept of chi. It's the exact same thing as the concept of chi. So why does he
need to overly complicate chi?
He has some other crazy fucking ideas in his head. That's why, and he's obsessed with it. So he wants to see these little microorganisms. Oh, actually, it's the midichlorians is this little fucking amoeba
that would be so hard to translate to screen.
Yeah,
like to try and translate that to a screen to an audience to where it doesn't look stupid. I don't see it being. I don't know. Maybe I don't. It just doesn't sound very translatable to me.
Yeah, And
I'm getting confused. I'm getting confused with all of
that. Yeah. No, I mean, I see it, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, and it's not cinematic.
No, it's not cinematic at all.
It's some weird. It's weird too because it's almost like trying to create hard sci-fi on something that's soft sci-fi.
It's a space opera. It doesn't need to be more complicated than just it's about a family who's really messed up. And there's like there's a war going on, and then there's space Nazis and a French resistance rebel alliance. You know what I mean? Like it's not complicated. If you want to do the hard science, you should have gone the Star Trek route, but Star Trek was already done, and you couldn't do it.
And you couldn't do Dune either.
And you couldn't do Dune. So it's just
Yeah.
Because the thing is, with the midi-chlorian, it almost sounds like something that would be in Star Trek. That's why I was kind of like, maybe you could translate it, because I've seen shit like that happen in Star Trek before. So it's not like maybe it can't be done. But for Star Wars, I don't think it could be done. It's not a hard science movie or franchise. It doesn't need to be. It was founded like that.
Yeah, exactly. It was founded on something that was not hard sci-fi. It's soft. It does stuff in broad strokes. The enemies are Nazis. The good guys are into some Eastern religion kind of stuff, and there's a resistance. And that's it. That's all we need.
World War II. We're watching World War II in space. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It doesn't need more. I think the formula was good. And I think they've started adding more sugar and more spice and not a whole lot of everything nice. And I think that's what's sorry. Continue.
Yeah. Another interesting quote that he had too was like he said that let me see. So similar to how the original trilogy was shaped by Lucas's strong opposition to the Vietnam War, the sequels would have been inspired by the aftermath of the Iraq War. There would have been no First Order style replacement of the Empire. Instead, Lucas wanted to explore the challenges of Reconstruction after the war had ended. And this was his quote. Okay, you fought the war and you killed everybody. Now what are you going to do? Lucas said, rebuilding afterward is harder than starting a rebellion or fighting the war. When you win the war and you disband the opposing army, what do they do? Stormtroopers would have been like Saddam Hussein's Ba'athist fighters that joined ISIS and kept on fighting. The Stormtroopers refused to give up when the Republic wins. So that was another kind of interesting idea.
Everything that you just quoted sounds like it would have been great. I'm not gonna lie, like that actually sounds really. No, think about it, because that's something that happens for like the first like 3 or 4 seasons in Star Trek Deep Space Nine is that the Federation or Starfleet is trying to get this planet Bajor to join the Federation, and they're like, we are reconstructing our planet. We have a government of people who are not even politicians. They're former rebels. They're former terrorists who are now trying to rebuild an entire planet. Like, that is some really good drama. It is very, very good. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he was like actually, again, self-aware enough to be like, no, it's harder to rebuild after what happens when you defeat the fascists? Like everything that happened in Germany post World War II, oh my God, like there's so much real world material you could have pulled from. So the fact that it just pisses me off even more that there was a First Order. Like,
yeah. I mean, and again, that wasn't his idea. But I feel like unfortunately there was some good. So like there's two like kind of big problems. Number one is like it's very hard to take actors that are older and then start a new trilogy around them.
Yeah,
when you expect that it's going to take you at least half a decade to complete the films. That's one problem. The second problem is that you kind of want to create new characters too, that you can.
Of course, yeah, that makes sense.
And we'll talk about when it comes to the writing of it. This is kind of the problem with the making a requel, as it were, is that sometimes your new characters are in conflict with your older characters, and you have to kind of balance that out. And so again, like they kind of just had to make a bunch of choices about how to balance the story with the constraint. Because like film, look again, like if you're writing a novel, if you're writing a comic book, like you could have Luke Skywalker be 30 forever in a comic book. That's easy. He's immutable. But Mark Hamill is getting older, and thank God he's still alive. He's still around, and he's still very happy to do anything related to the character. But he's a mortal human being, and we only have him for so long. And we only have him looking a certain way for so long too. You know, even if he's still around, he still gets older, and that's sort of the problem when it comes to cinema. That's kind of the strength, is that it feels so real because it's real people, real things, and it can really affect us. But that's also the downside, because like we can't have a 30-year-old Mark Hamill forever. We just can't.
No, it's the same. You can't have a 30-year-old Brent Spiner playing Data forever. It just doesn't work like that. It's not their fault that they age. It's just timing.
Yeah, it's just the way that it works. And so you have to balance that. And so part of the balance is we have to like sort of create these new protagonists to move the story forward. And so in order to do that, we have to kind of change things and put these older characters, make them supporting characters instead of leading characters. And that was basically kind of like what they decided they needed to do with this new trilogy. Create new characters, have the old characters be kind of supporting characters, and then move the story forward from there. So as I was saying, in 2012, Lucasfilm gets acquired by Disney. Kathleen Kennedy is the head of the studio. She begins plans for 7, 8, and 9. They hired the screenwriter Michael Arndt, very, very, very talented guy. I really like his work, and his theories on writing too actually are very good. So he was hired in like 2012. It's like right around when the acquisition happened. So he initially was basically writing treatments for all 3 films, actually.
Okay.
So that was the beginning of the plan, as it were, basically. Now, the issue that happened was basically they got put on a timeline by Disney. Disney says, here's your date. Your date is December 2015. You have to make a film by that time.
Because we want to profit off those Christmas sales at Target.
Yeah. I mean, and not only that, right? But they just spent $4.5 billion, and half of it was cash, half of it was stock that they gave all to George fucking Lucas. And so they want to get their money back as quickly as possible. Right? And so, do you want a plan or do you want the money? Do you want a plan? Like the corporate's like, fuck the plan. This is Star Wars. We'll just make a film and it'll be fine. And we're going to sell a bunch of toys. Yeah.
They weren't really wrong.
Yeah. Right. And so that's, again, like this is like the thing that comes when it comes to like making these products. Like there's all these, so like that's like the upside of Disney owning Star Wars is like they fucking pumped out the content and have all this money that they can make stuff happen. I mean, George struggled to make some of these films. I mean, Empire Strikes Back like almost didn't happen because of financial problems. Like they had to go to banks, and then they immediately had all these issues where when they were shooting on location, like they're shooting on location in somewhere to do Hoth. And it was like, oh, by the way, there's a massive once in a decade snowstorm, and we're like kind of fucked. And they needed more money, and the budget doubled, and blah blah blah. And then the banks got mad. He was somehow able to make the film. And the film's a masterpiece. But these things happen. But that doesn't happen when you're under a corporate overlord like Disney. They're just like, oh, there's a problem. Fine. How big is the check? Well, yeah, not only that, but like they have an infinite fund of money because they're a corporate entity that is able to get hundreds of like literally billions of dollars of cash rolls in, and they can then use that to get bonds and get more money. Yeah, you need like $500 million a year in production. Boom, here it is. Like without any, like there's no problem for them to do that. But the downside is they have these hard dates. And, you know, George Lucas was the head of Lucasfilm, and he decided when they were going to make the film, what the film's story was going to be. And he was the central figure. That central figure was kind of gone, basically. True, yeah. And it was just a bunch of corporate entities. Now, again, like at the time, the structure that they had was very, very good. So I didn't talk about this, but like when like the treatment, like we've only heard about these treatments now from because like a bunch of archives have been released. But at the time, there were like 4 or 5 people that read George Lucas's materials. It was Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger, Alan Horn, and Kevin Mayer. That was it. And those were basically the highest people at Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And again, these are some very, very well-regarded studio executives. So, I mean, basically, again, like Star Wars was going into a completely different era than what it was before.
Yeah.
You know. Okay, so Michael Arndt is writing the scripts. He's also writing treatments for the whole trilogy. That then becomes a conflict because he's trying to figure out this whole story, but they now have a hard date. You have to hit December 2015. So he kind of runs into these issues because, like, basically he was talking about, like, they had these ideas. Okay, so we want this new protagonist to be this female scavenger. Okay, cool. He was like trying to figure out like how to work in the new and the old characters. And one of the things that he talked about in some of these interviews afterwards was like there was a lot of issue with having Luke be in the film a lot because the more he was in it, the more he dominated the film. And so they were trying to kind of move away from that. But he's such a powerful character that every time he was in the film, he became the center of all conflict and just became the most interesting character. And so, you know, it seemed like that became a thing that kind of got him stuck on trying to figure out how to balance that part of the script. And so because of that, later on, he ends up having to leave the project just because he couldn't meet the deadline. Like he said he needed like 18 months to finish the script, but they only gave him like 6 months, something like that. And so then he ends up leaving. There's this whole thing about who's going to become the director. A whole bunch of names get tossed out. Apparently Ben Affleck and Neil Blomkamp passed on the film. They could have directed it. They decided not to. They wanted to get Brad Bird to direct it, but he was doing Tomorrowland, so he had to he couldn't do it because of scheduling. Fincher, Favreau, Filoni, Del Toro were considered. Matthew Vaughn dropped out of Days of Future Past because he wanted to be considered, but he ended up not getting it. So eventually, because Michael Arndt leaves, on the suggestion of Steven Spielberg, they brought in JJ Abrams to write the script. And so he comes in with Lawrence Kasdan. They write the script. They complete the script. And then while they were completing the script, basically Kasdan and Kennedy convinced him to direct the film. And so that's how he became the director of the film.
I mean, you get Lawrence Kasdan to come in. That's kind of a heavy hitter. Like
very heavy hitter.
That gives you some serious freaking credit. Not that JJ hadn't done anything with his career. He has been working. I can shit on JJ Abrams until the cows come home. But the one thing I can say is that motherfucker consistently works. Like I genuinely do think he works very, very hard. I think he does. I think a lot of shit's been handed to him personally, but
and it's very nice that Steven Spielberg, who's like again one of the
with that
consiglieres of this, says, "Hey, you should hire this guy."
It's literally like I think a lot of people saw him as like a wonderkin. Like, you know what I mean? I think a lot of people saw him as a wonderkin. I think he is talented. I will say that before I proceed to shit on him. But you have Steven Spielberg, like his recommendations came from if he came from the freaking Hollywood mafia.
I know.
You know what I mean?
He's got such friends in high places, and he always had.
And that's good for him. Like apparently he networks very, very well.
And spoiler: The Force Awakens ain't bad. You know, they pulled it off. I think. Lawrence,
I think they pulled it off. I think it's just A New Hope.
Oh yeah.
It's just,
and I think they did that explicitly.
Yeah. It doesn't age well though.
Yeah, I think there's some. We'll talk about it. There are some problems, considering all the shit they had to deal with. That they were on a timeline.
Considering all the hoops,
late.
Yes. Considering all the hoops, because when you start saying like we care more about deadlines and Christmas present sales and toys and shit, it's not about the art anymore. And I think what was so special about A New Hope is that this was an artsy fucking movie. You know what I mean? Like the amount of just the amount of sheer authenticity that comes with A New Hope, you know, just being able to compare it to the prequels. It's a much more artsy movie. But then you move into the 2020s or the the 20 teens or whatever, and you're like, no, we got deadlines, we got investors, we got sponsorships, we got
toys,
we got toys, we got this, we got that. Like there's so many more people to please besides an audience and yourself.
Yeah, and really like people don't understand that George Lucas is like the most successful independent producer of all time.
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
He made Star Wars, and then everything else he independently produced himself, and Fox was just distributing it. He owned the rights to the toys. He owned everything, all the rights to the films. He financed all the things himself. Everything that he did, everything that you saw was him finding someone. You know, he went to Jim Henson. Hey, can you build a puppet for me for this giant slug? Sure. Yeah, I can do that for you, George. And that was it. That's how it got made. Like, hey, I have this character, like Yoda, and like I'm thinking of doing a monkey, but the monkey just looks weird. Can you make a puppet for me? Yeah, and we'll have. I got this guy, Frank Oz. He's really talented. He can do the voice.
Yeah, and this guy, Frank Oz. You know, we just have this guy.
Yeah, and that's how he made Star Wars, and it's kind of fucking insane when you think about that. It's like one of them. It's like we live in this era where there's all of these massive franchises. He himself, just himself, with his collaborators, created a franchise in an era where there were none.
You know what I see coming? You know what I see coming one day? The Offer, which I still haven't finished watching on Paramount Plus. I could see a huge, just tell the story of the making of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like dramatize that. Like, yeah, there would be some creative license, but I would watch that. I would watch that.
Star Wars is interesting. I think that actually Empire is even more interesting because he takes a step back and there's all this stuff, because that's where it really gets crazy, is like how he did all the things by himself when he had all the power, but he kind of was an outsider. He was still an outsider in Hollywood because he was doing all these things himself, and he had all these conflicts with the Directors Guild and all this other shit. Because he was the guy, he was the head of this empire that he created, and it was not easy. It was like Empire Strikes Back could have easily failed.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I think the whole series or the whole franchise could have easily failed at any time. The fact that you have 3 different actors playing Darth Vader, first of all, is kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Who you have to pay 3 different people to play one character? I would have been an exec, been like, what?
Yeah.
Just get one guy. Just get one guy, one paycheck. It's like, no, we need a guy to do the sword fighting because the guy who does all the walking and all that stuff can't do it. Also, his voice does not fit at all. Yeah. And then you got to pay a guy who's literally just sitting in a booth. Yeah. James Earl Jones has the easiest job.
He has the easiest job, yeah.
But
you know, he had a vision and he made the vision happen, and it's.
And I would like to see that dramatized. I would be fine with watching that dramatized.
Yeah,
I think it'd be interesting.
There's some really great stories about like how they made Empire. I agree. There should be some kind of like The Offer for Star Wars.
Yeah. Ben Affleck if Ben Affleck was younger, he'd be a great George Lucas.
Yeah, George is interesting because he was very skinny back then.
Yeah, he was very skinny. He was also Ben Affleck looks like nerdy. He's in his late 40s or early 50s. Like he was also like, wasn't George Lucas only in his 20s, like mid 20s? I feel like he was pretty young.
Yeah,
I guess it doesn't really matter. But I feel like if this was made 20 years ago, like a dramatization of Star Wars, Ben Affleck would have been a perfect George Lucas.
Yeah. So and so I think the last thing to talk about is like basically the Force Awakens is like the model for what they call like the requel, or like I wouldn't say the legacy sequel. That's kind of different. That's like, okay, we're gonna do a sequel, but we're gonna chop off all the bullshit. Because like what's funny is, so in 2015 alone, there was Mad Max Fury Road, Creed, and Jurassic World. Just in that year, all of these other sort of similar ideas came where we're okay. We have this established franchise. We have these older actors who play these older characters. We're going to take that world, create new characters in that world, and have them play like a supporting role in the new character's story. And yeah, it just showed like this idea was like, this was the new idea of how to replenish a franchise and keep it going. And so, and Top Gun Maverick is sort of another perfect example of like how to do that, which came out this year. So yeah, I mean, it's when it works, it really works. I mean, again, like Top Gun Maverick and The Force Awakens and all these movies show you. Like, it's like a way to like give the audience the nostalgia that they want, but new characters and new stories that kind of keep the franchise going. Yeah. So I guess the last thing I want to talk about before we kind of get into the film is sort of, I think, how good the marketing and like the teaser trailers were for this film. Like, they were exceptional. Dude. I mean, they were so like the first thing I ever remember, the first image I ever remember was like they did a teaser of Kylo Ren, his sword.
Yes, I do remember. He's in the snow and it goes,
and you see that it's a fucking claymore.
Dude, I remember so many people being like, "What is that?
I remember watching with my friends.
Lightsaber! Yeah. Oh my god!" Everyone was like freaking out. Yeah, I was.
And Disney's like, "Oh yeah, we got 1 million toys just lined up.
We hooked up. Come here, little fishy. Come here. Look at the gold. Look at the gold."
They're so excited because like these people literally, they're like, "Oh
I was
my
excited,
god,
bro. I was ready to like go and buy like one of those plastic lightsabers that you put the giant batteries in and shit. Like, I was ready to go and buy one of those. I didn't because I was poor, but like, no, it's like I was so freaking jazzed. And then, so like when the theatrical trailer dropped, my mom cried.
Yeah.
She saw that Millennium Falcon, and then it cuts to like Harrison Ford, and he's like, "Chewie, we're home," and she's like, "Oh my god," because she saw Star Wars in the theaters. She saw A New Hope.
Yeah. Again, that's the power of doing these type of films, because
it made my mom cry.
Yeah, it gets you in with that nostalgia, and then it sells you on the new characters so that you can continue with the story. Yeah, and like
we had never seen the Millennium Falcon really look that good before. I mean, we'd seen her do some shit. We'd seen her do some maneuvers and stuff, but like
we'll talk about like the first scene, like the ILM, they did an unbelievable fucking job with the way that because they had never done like, you know, a modern this century version of the Millennium Falcon. Like it's sort of in the prequels a little bit. We see it like once, but they'd never done it. And the physics of how they do the Millennium Falcon that you can see in the teaser is like fucking mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
Fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy.
Yeah. And that teaser trailer, I mean, I don't know if I've ever felt any stronger about any teaser trailer ever. It is so effective. And like the opening is like, you just hear this voice. There's been an awakening in the Force. Have you felt it? And then you see all this.
Dude, I'm getting chills right now. It's not just because of the air conditioning. Like, I was so freaking jazzed. And I'm not ashamed of still like.
And it's like, oh, I can feel it. I can feel the awakening. The awakening's in me.
I felt like I was like a Force sensitive biatch for like a hot minute. I watched that trailer so many times. Like,
that's the thing about Star Wars. Like, there's this sort of like almost like religious thing when there was definitely
a religious fervor.
Yeah, and it was the same thing with when they did the Phantom Menace, and people the first time they saw Darth Maul and the first time they heard like the Duel of Fates, it had the same reaction of people. And like when you tap into that, it's really powerful.
I would really love to vote that we bring back the Duel of Fates, because it is a beautiful piece of music. It is so forget what its relationship to Star Wars. That is a beautifully composed piece of music. Like the choir. Just like so cool. And the way it builds like consistently the tension of that fight scene, which again is like I think one of the best lightsaber fight scenes. And we hadn't really seen a lightsaber fight scene like it before. And the way that and it gets louder and it's like fucking John Williams. God damn it.
Yeah. So and again, like in this film, John Williams comes back. He continues to do the composing. It's just they're getting us from every angle. And it just created a swelling fervor for people. And then again, like the other part of when you see the trailer, it feels like the old films mixed with the new films. It doesn't feel like everything's on a green screen. It feels like there's puppets, there's real locations, there's different actors. The CGI looks really fucking good, and it's like, whoa, okay, this feels different than the prequels.
And what I think the trailer does really, really well, that Star Trek 2009 did also really well, is that it gives you those little pieces of nostalgia and tells you nothing about the movie. Nothing. It does not tell you
it gets you excited.
It gets you excited, but it does not tell you a single thing about the plot.
Yeah,
we
you
see
don't
them
know
like
anything
Falcon
about the
running
plot.
around. We know that Harrison Ford and Chewie are there. We got these new characters who are running around. We got this cute little ball thing doing shit. We got an evil dude in black robes. That's it. We get some X-Wing stuff too, I think. But like, you don't know anything about the plot except there's been an awakening, and you're like, yes, and I am here for it. It's like, yeah. And I think it's almost like this double, maybe not a double entendre. I don't know if that's the correct phrase to use, but it's like there's been an awakening in the Star Wars like universe. There's this new thing that's happening, but there's an awakening in real life that's happening with Star Wars fans. And it gives you everything you want. It delivers.
Yeah. Yeah, and like again, people so quick to forget how shitty things were after because like again, so there had been no Star Wars after Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith was considered good, but the prequels were considered like a disaster. A disaster.
On a whole, yeah. They were trash.
People hated it. And all of a sudden there was all this hate, and now we're salivating. We're salivating.
Oh hell yeah, we were.
It's like, oh
like
my god,
free buffet. What are you talking about? No, it ain't free, honey, but you want it, don't you?
I mean, people again, like this film created a fervor, and people were like, I want it now. I want it.
There was a vibration, and there was literally like, it's like freaking Beethoven, like and we're like,
yeah. Okay, so now that we've added all that context, we can finally talk about this film.
I think we can probably
get into the plot.
Now.
Yeah,
we can talk about it.
It just shows you like how much, and this is all like I feel like really important context. Like for someone who's, I'm telling you right now, for someone out there, someone at some point, maybe it's an AI, whatever. I will tell you right now, like I have never in my life been more excited for any media property than I was when I watched the teaser trailer for The Force Awakens. When I watched that, I was at work. I was like, oh, there's a trailer. Okay, I'll watch it. And I fucking lost my mind. I was jumping. I was screaming at the back. Like I was working at Verizon. I'm like in the back of the store, like fucking out of my mind, excited.
Your customer's like, is he okay? Yeah, it's
just
Star Wars.
Fortunately, like again, like there's like this wall, and like there's this back area where we conspire against our customers, basically. That's where I was. I lost my fucking mind. Like, I'm telling you, this movie had a huge upswelling, and everybody felt it at the same time. Everybody, it was like, I have to be a part of this. I have to be there. I have to be in a theater. I have to be there with other people. I have to hear that. I have to be there.
Oh my god, that split-second moment from when like the what is it, like when you see like the studio, everything, and then there's like that brief dark screen.
So there's like a long time ago in a galaxy far
away, and then
the title card jumps at you, and then you see the crawl, and it's like, that's Star Wars.
Yeah,
that's Star Wars. And it just, there's this universal thing about the experience of feeling a Star Wars film.
And to feel a part of something. That's why, going to see Star Trek 2009 when I was, 19 years old or 18 or 19 years old, I felt like I was a part of something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That sense of community, that sense of camaraderie. We're all here to see and enjoy the same thing that we've all loved for decades and have grown up watching. And it's so fun to feel that close to something with strangers in a dark room staring at a giant screen, and it's wonderful. It's one of those. It's movie magic.
Yeah, no, this, and again, it's Star Wars was one of the things that really created this sort of experience.
Yes, no, absolutely. I completely agree with that.
And it's something so powerful when you tap into it, and then they like start dingling these little toys at you too, and all this other shit.
Literal toys, like literal freaking toys.
Like, freaking toys.
Oh my god, Ryan's kid doesn't even like Star Wars, and they have a BB-8 electric toothbrush.
Yeah.
It's just something that appeals. Oh, it's cute. It's got very attractive colors for children. It's bright. It's adorable. It makes little squeaky noises. And
it's friendly, it's safe. It's like a dog.
It's like a dog. And that appeals to kids, even if they're not into it. It's just like, okay.
Yeah. And this is why they bought Star Wars, because they know they can they can really, really tap into every level of what the IP has to offer, and that's what they were doing. And they were like shooting us with drugs right into the
vein. It was like right into the vein.
Give it to me. Just give me it. Give me it straight.
I shouldn't be joking about that, but it's true.
I know it's true. It's true.
We were all hooked up to it. We were like,
we were all on it, and we just loved it. We loved it. So yeah, because like The Force Awakens is the highest grossing film domestically in North America ever. And it has a record I
vaguely remember like it having like this. Is it gonna surpass Avatar? It's getting closer. It's getting close. And did it? Like I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, when you look, I remember I like saw it like 3 weeks later at this screening. Basically, it was like an IMAX. Like there was one legit IMAX print of it sent out to certain theaters, and one of mine was one near it. It was like a domed theater. I saw it there. It was like almost sold out. This was like 3 weeks into its run. like this movie was so successful. Like it's crazy.
Yeah,
crazy. I don't think people can really understand like how much there was love for this film.
Yeah.
Like
I said, like at the beginning, anticipation. Anticipation.
Yeah.
I think I saw it at a night showing and it was super packed. And then like a few weeks later, I took myself to see a matinee and it was still pretty packed, but it wasn't like super crazy or anything like that. And I remember just like looking over at this other girl and she was like,
yeah, I know. It's just so, man.
I'm like, I don't know who she is. We're having the same experience. She was alone. I was alone. And we were perfectly happy. Just like, watching it.
Just loving the experience. Yeah. So for me, The Force Awakens I will never forget like seeing that trailer and just being like, and the thing is the trailer ends with the fucking Millennium Falcon flying at 2 TIE fighters. And I'm like, oh my God.
Well, even just
Jesus.
Jesus, take the wheel.
Chewie, take the wheel.
Oh my God, no, seriously, because I feel like Battlestar Galactica started this trend of like the shaky camera zooming in on like a space battle. I feel like Battlestar really made that a thing. And Star Wars The Force Awakens utilized that technique really, really well.
Yeah.
I feel like Battlestar doesn't get enough credit for that one. But
Battlestar, I need to start watching it, but Battlestar.
I've only seen parts of like every season because my dad and my mom were like up Battlestar Galactica's butt. Like it was The Sopranos one night and then Battlestar the next night, and I was like,
Battlestar was very influential. Like it was some of the best sci-fi. I need to watch that.
Same. I always mean to. I know how it ends. That's why I think I'm coming.
Well, I don't yet, but I mean, it's the journey.
It's about the journey. Exactly. It's about the journey, not the destination.
Okay, so the opening crawl of this film starts with the first sentence is Luke Skywalker has vanished.
What? Baby, no.
Okay, it says in his absence has risen the First Order from the ashes of the Empire and will not rest until Skywalker, the Last Jedi, has been destroyed. General Organa leads the Resistance. Leia has sent out her most daring pilot on a secret mission to Jakku, where he will find an old ally to discover a clue to his whereabouts. Okay, so I remember from the start being like, "Yay, Star Wars! Luke has disappeared." No, that was literally my first reaction, which is really interesting because, like, again, they basically sort of use Luke as a MacGuffin in this movie. Like everyone's looking for him, and so that was their solution to like the Luke Skywalker not problem, but it's just like, again, there was that like they did this at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian. Luke comes back and he kills everybody. He's just like a very at this time period, he's a very, very powerful character, and he's almost maybe too powerful. Like he was already super powerful, and so narratively sometimes it presents this issue. But like that was like the first thing they did is like, Luke is gone, he's not there, and the universe is in turmoil, and how are we going to resolve that?
Like, well, shit.
Yeah. So then the next thing, we get this really cool shot of this First Order like Superstar Destroyer like eclipsing over this planet, this moon. And then we see these 4 transport ships like come down. Then the 4 ships are there. We see inside of the transport, and it's like these lights are blaring. It's very kind of like I don't know. It's sort of a different take. We've never really been in the POV of a stormtrooper before.
No, which actually made it really, I think, it humanized the stormtrooper a little bit. It's like, these are actually people. Maybe they don't want to be there.
Yeah. So then we see Poe. He meets with Lor San Tekka. And he gives him this object that's going to help with the whereabouts of Luke. BB-8 alerts Poe like, hey, the stormtroopers are coming. Poe gets in his X-Wing, and then there's this full-on raid on this little village. Their X-Wing gets shot and disabled. Poe gives the item to BB-8 for safekeeping and tells him, go off, just make sure to keep this thing safe. He's gone. One of the stormtroopers sees his friend like die, and he's like bleeding, and he's like kind of grasping as his last moment. And we can see that the stormtrooper is like really scarred by this experience. So then a shuttlecraft arrives, and we see Kylo Ren. Now, another thing that's really brilliant about this, right? This is like the first time we get the next phase of John Williams' sort of score and the motifs. So Kylo Ren has this really pretty awesome motif, I'd say.
It's a good piece of music.
Yeah. So Kylo confronts Lor Tekka, and they have this whole discussion about stuff. And what does he say? He says, like, I knew who you were before you were Kylo Ren. He's like, oh, you've become so old. Yeah.
Say hi to your mom for me.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, okay, I will. And he chops him in half. Chops this dude in half, straight up. Poe fires a shot at him.
Poe's pretty but stupid, in my opinion.
Yeah. And Kylo stops it with the Force.
I have to say that was pretty cool. I thought that was really, really cool because we hadn't. Again, they're giving us a lot in the opening scene that we haven't seen before, which I think is pretty cool.
So the only thing we've seen, we've seen in Empire, like Vader stops them with his hand like this, but he didn't stop the bolt.
No.
He just kind of absorbed the bolt and it did nothing.
Yeah.
And that's a great, I love that Han, like, he sees Vader, he's like, fuck it, I'm shooting.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, fuck this.
So back aboard the Star Destroyer, so we see the trooper FN 2187. He takes off his helmet, and he's super freaked out, and he's a black guy, which is interesting too. Because again, before, what we've known is like they were clones in the previous era. And then at some point they stopped being clones, and now it
wasn't cost effective, It's easier just to kidnap people, like the Jedi.
Yeah, exactly. So he's confronted by Captain Phasma, this who's I don't know. She's like her. I'm not sure what her rank is or whatever. Well, she's captain, but basically she's in charge, and she's policing all.
She might just be in charge of his battalion or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Now she looked really cool. She's all chrome.
She was a great set piece.
Yeah, and again, toy time.
Toy with a dollar sign at the end of it. Cha-ching. It's like every time she walks on screen, it's just cha-ching, cha-ching.
And like you said, they knew this is come out on Christmas, and we're gonna have a whole line of toys.
Oh, it just happens to be coming out around Christmas, guys. It's like, hey, Marge, you want the new Captain Phasma doll?
And the minute that movie, after the opening weekend, they did a bunch of promotion, buy this, buy Rey, buy Finn, buy a pack with all 8 of them.
Oh, the Lego sets, dude.
Oh my god.
I know. I have a brother who has many a TIE fighter.
Yeah. And then there's all the new stuff that you could build. Right, because then you can
all the models. It's not just Lego,
models,
models and all that other shit. It's just costumes for Halloween the following year.
And it's going to be super, super popular.
Well, actually, if it came out in December, by October, the trailers had already been out. There probably were costumes for Halloween. Kids were probably already dressing up as these characters. And if they weren't, they were going nostalgia and going back
being
to like
Luke or something. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So literally, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Yeah, it's just so back on Jakku, we see this scavenger character. We see this person, and they're like inside this machine, and they're like trying to take this part out. And we see her like slide down this massive hill of sand. And then we see that it's Rey. She's this very young teenage girl. And then she takes the parts that she scrapped, she puts it on her speeder, and then she kind of takes off. And this was another thing we saw in the trailer. We saw her on the speeder. And I'm not sure exactly where they shot this. I don't know if they went back to Morocco or not. But wherever it was a real place. It wasn't like that thing with Natalie. Remember that shot and Natalie Portman falls off the thing? She falls onto sand, and it doesn't look. It looked like she fell onto like a green pillow.
Yeah, it's thankfully.
And then she talks to a guy. Hey, you need to go here. Go.
Look at the tennis ball, Natalie. Look at the tennis ball. Yeah, no, it's a real desert. Thankfully,
it's a real desert, and it looks like a real speeder. It looks like they built all these things. They built all these sets. It feels real. Like whatever you want to say about how they did it, the feeling is different from the prequels. We feel like we're in the Star Wars of the 70s and the 80s, not the prequels where it was a fucking green, everything was green. And the audience can feel that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, an audience can definitely feel authenticity when it's there, for sure.
And this is really cool because in the sequence, like, this is such an interesting idea because like she's basically scavenging through the detritus of the Galactic Civil War, and we see a downed X-wing, a downed TIE fighter, a downed Super Star Destroyer. Really brilliant idea. And actually, I saw this one thing. I'll probably show it to you after, but like they had this other idea for an opening, which was really clever. Basically, it was sort of like a play on the opening of A New Hope, where we see this ship and we see the massive Star Destroyer coming behind it, but then what happens is the ship dumps the Star Destroyer onto Jakku, and we see it kind of go into the atmosphere and then crash land.
Oh, okay, yeah, that would have been interesting. It's just like a junk. They're just junk in it, basically.
Exactly, okay. Like Jakku is just like a junk planet.
Yeah,
they dump stuff. That's it. So then we see Rey go to Nema Outpost, and she's taking the parts that she scavenges. She's like scrubbing them. We get this really great scene where she like looks across the table. She sees this old woman doing the same thing, and she's like, "Oh shit," because she's like, again, the Rey is like 19. She's very, very young. Played by Daisy Ridley, who like had done a few things before this, but she'd basically done nothing, and this was her first. Her first like really, well, I mean, it's fucking Star Wars.
Her
and
first
she's
leading role.
Yeah, and she's incredible. She's incredible. She's really, really, really good. And I feel like there have been many things that have been unfortunately soured because of where we end up in this trilogy. But I do hope that she comes back because she is very good, and she does the character.
She's a really good actress.
She was not the problem.
No, it's never.
There were other massive problems.
Yeah, it's not her fault.
She was not the problem. She was part of the success. She's interrupted by this Jawa-looking alien, which is like, oh, get back to work. It like kind of, does whatever. And so we kind of get a really like good and clear idea of who she is and what's going on very quickly. I think very, very effectively. Like this sequence really makes you like her.
Yeah, it sets it up really well.
Yeah. And again, like I really like the way that they depicted these like aliens or whatever. Like they're all like puppets.
Yeah, they're puppets, or they're in costume, or they got makeup on, and maybe they have to CGI in like a few other things. But it's the CGI really does take a backseat as far as like the costuming and stuff goes. Yeah.
So then we see like, so she turns in the stuff she scrapped. She gets a quarter portion for the work, so she's working for food. So it's like subsistence living. Her life is like terrible. It's fucking terrible. So when she comes home, we see that she like has all these markings on the wall. She's marking something, counting the days for something or waiting for something. She uses this she has this makeshift wok, and she puts the powder in and then mixes it with water, and it turns into bread, and she's eating that. Later on in the next scene, we see her watching the ship take off, and she's wearing this rebellion helmet. And so you can kind of tell, yeah, it's super cute.
It's kind of like she's playing house or something.
Yeah. And she's right next to a downed AT-AT or something like that.
Yeah, and she's just hanging out. This is her life, She just puts it on. She's like,
yeah. Cool. And then she sees BB-8. She hears BB-8 being attacked, and so she goes over the ridge over to the next dune and basically saves him from this other scrapper. And she's like, okay, let me fix your antenna. She fixes his antenna.
Okay.
And yeah, it's great. Man, they I remember they did this thing where it was JJ and Kathleen Kennedy and some other people, and they had it may have even been the one that they used. They had a BB-8 just roll out onto this thing where they were doing this talking about the movie. And I remember just being man, that is because I was how the fuck did they do that? To be honest,
no, for real.
How does this work? I don't understand it, but it's very cool, and I kind of want one because they sold a lot of BB-8 toys.
Oh yeah, they did.
They sold a lot of BB-8 toys. So Ray's okay, Nemo Outpost is that way, and he's no, I don't want to leave you. He's no, I can't help you. You need to leave me alone. I can't afford
to take care of a dog, kid. Okay,
yeah.
I already got my own problems.
I'm working for nothing. I can't take care of anyone else. And he's kind of follows her, and she's reluctantly okay, come on. But I'm only gonna help you for a day, and then after that you gotta go. So then on the Star Destroyer, we see Poe being tortured by Kylo. And this is again another thing, they just keep showing Kylo as being pretty powerful. He's able to use the Force to extract information from him. Again, this is another thing we've never seen a Force user do.
I feel we get a tiny piece of it from Vader in Return of the Jedi during his final duel.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Kind of just or he's just using the knowledge he already has to manipulate him. That could also be it.
It's something. You're right about that. It does seem like Vader kind of is able to access his thoughts or feelings or fears or something. There's something out there.
Or at least what he's thinking about, because the last thing Luke did before he left was say goodbye to Leia. So that's still probably really fresh in his mind. So it's probably easy for Vader to be oh.
They do. Yeah. And it definitely seems like in Empire, they have a psychic link because, Luke jumps off the thing. Leia helps him oh, we got to go back and save Luke. He's back there. They save Luke. And then there's this thing is Luke, and he's fathers. Yeah. So they have some kind of a psychic link through the Force at that point. So I don't know.
But we haven't seen it used for torture yet. So I still think it's something that it's very dark for sure.
It's very dark. I mean, because this Kylo Ren dude, before we know anything, all we know is this dude is fucked up and dark. And so basically he extracts this information, and they're okay, it's on a droid, it's on Jakku, we gotta find it. Send out the troopers. Okay, so the guy who's handing out these portions, Unkar, this big fat looking dude, offers Rey 60 portions for BB-8, and she declines. And he's how dare you decline, or whatever, right? And then he's follow that girl and get that droid. So then FN-2187 helps Poe escape. They get into a TIE fighter, and they bust out of the hangar. They then have to take out these cannons so they can actually escape and not get shot down. But Poe's oh, we gotta go back to Jakku. He's what? I don't want to go back to Jakku. Fuck Jakku. Jakku sucks. He's no, you don't understand. There's this thing that I really need to get. And also Poe gives Finn his new name, which is Finn. Instead of FN, it's Finn, which is kind of nice. Because as we'll find out, yeah, Finn legitimately was stolen as a child, raised to be a stormtrooper, and has known nothing else. FN-2187 was his name.
Yeah. His designation.
Yeah, exactly. He has a designation. Isn't that horrible? You have a designation.
Yeah, you're so worthless. You have no individuality and no name.
Yeah. You are just a dude in a spreadsheet. That's it.
Exactly.
That's all you are.
You're on our Excel sheet.
Yeah. Okay, so then they get hit by a photon torpedo and they crash on Jakku. Finn kind of wakes up and he finds the TIE fighter destroyed and he can't find Poe. And then the TIE fighter gets consumed by the sand dune, and Finn basically leaves with Poe's like sort of jacket or whatever. So Finn's making his way around, and so he finally comes to find Nima Outpost. He goes there. He's trying to find some water. There's this like watering hole that's being drunk by this massive thing. I don't know what it was.
Thing. Yeah, it's some kind of alien.
Again, it's really cool because it's actually a puppet. It's not a CGI thing. Very well.
I love
done.
how there's a moment where he realizes what he's drinking out of. He's like, yeah, fuck it, I don't care.
Yeah, he's
I'm just thirsty. I don't care.
Yeah, like I gotta drink out of this. It's like what do they have for horses? Like a trough.
Yeah,
they had a water trough. Yeah, it's basically like drinking out of that.
Yeah, but he's just like, I'm too thirsty. I can't. Thirsty. I don't care.
So then he sees Rey, and then Rey and BB-8 see him, and so then Rey is like gets jumped basically by these guys, and he's like, oh, I need to help out. And like by the time before you can even get there, she's like already taking them all out.
It's like, dude, she's lived with these people for a long time. She can handle it. She's fine. And there's even a great moment where she's like, stop taking my hand. I'm fine.
Oh my god, I love
like,
that.
You need my help. She's like, stop holding my hand.
Yeah, I love that. Stop holding my hand.
Like, he's way more helpless than she is.
Way more. She has to save him multiple times. And she's like, she's spent her life having to be resourceful, otherwise she would die.
Yeah, pretty much.
So the BB-8 like identifies Finn and he's like, oh, get him. And so then she goes after Finn
and he
takes
like,
him out.
Shit.
Yeah. And then he's like, like you stole this. You're a thief. He's like, no, I didn't steal this. Like, well, that jacket belonged to his master. He's like, oh, it was Poe and he died in the crash. And the BB-8's all sad, and he kind of goes away. Yeah,
he kind of just goes and like putters away, and it's like, oh, poor guy.
And then so, Rey's like, oh, so you're part of the resistance, and he's like, yeah, I'm
totally,
part of the resistance. Yeah.
Why does that make me attractive to you?
I really like the way that they depict their relationship.
Yeah,
like I'm so sad that they like immediately never go back to this. Never.
I know, it's so frustrating. I'm just like, they have instant chemistry. Like, I mean, the actors themselves, because she's gonna kick the shit out of him when she first sees him. But like, she's so taken with him. Like, you're in the resistance. Like, that's so cool. And he's like, of course I am. Like,
like we look like this and we look like other things. Like, it's like yeah.
Yeah, it's like I'm pretty cool. Like he's so charming and horribly, unfairly underused after this movie.
Oh, what they do to him, like honestly, they completely derail his story arc in the next film. Completely.
For the sake of a shitty love story.
Yeah, they've
sidelined John fucking Boyega for the sake of a crappy, unbelievable love story. Okay, I'm gonna keep it in.
Yeah,
we'll more movies to go.
Like, because when we talk about that, that'll be fun. But yeah, it's just so fun because like you said, they have instant chemistry.
They're both young. They're in their same age range.
There's this other great line too that like Han says is like, women, they always figure out the truth. And there's this because like they're both kind of lost people in a way, and so you're like kind of rooting for them to get together. And then he talks about like, oh well, BB-8, he has this thing that leads to Luke Skywalker. It's like, oh, Luke Skywalker, I thought he was a myth. And then we get the scene where like the First Order comes, he grabs her hand. He's like, why are you grabbing my hand? And they just start running. And stop holding my hand. It's great. So then they're like, okay, she's like, okay, we gotta fly out of here. Like let's go take that quad jumper. And he's like, and then Finn's like, what about that other ship? Oh, that ship's garbage. The quad jumper gets destroyed. The garbage will do. Pans over. It's a Millennium Falcon.
It's a Millennium
Falcon. Like literally hits that that motif.
Falcon
plays.
looks rough. She's been collecting dust for a little bit.
It's seen better. I mean, it was already bad enough when
It was already bad. It's like
Yeah.
I love how they just keep making her look just a little
Yeah, a
shittier
little
as
worse.
the decades progress. But she always delivers.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing that we saw of it in Return of the Jedi, like Lando clips it. He clips it at one point, like at the top. Like it's
Doesn't he say something like that was close?
yeah,
I think he's
Yeah,
and the first technical time Han sees it in the junkyard, it's got a boot on it.
Yeah,
it's
got a boot.
impounded.
It does, yeah.
Oh my god.
So they board the Falcon, take off. Rey pilots it. Finn's in the gunner seat, and they get into a dogfight with 2 TIE fighters. It's like 2 or 3. Rey does some really cool, and the physics of this is just absolutely astounding. I mean, ILM did an unbelievable job. I mean, this is the flagship ship. It has to look really good.
Oh yeah.
And they do an incredible. There's just one shot where it flies towards the screen and then kind of does this sort of move. And just the physics of it is astounding. It's just astounding.
Mhm.
It feels so real. And they're flying through all these destroyed Star Destroyers. It's a really cool sequence. Looks amazing. I think one of them gets taken out because the move is like a little too tight for them, so they get destroyed. And then Rey gets the gunner seat into position by stalling out and like kind of dipping so that the gunner seat is pointing right at the TIE fighter as it comes out of the ship, and then Finn takes him out. And then that's like, again, like they're doing a lot of the things again. Like this is similar to like the scene when they get off of Tatooine in A New Hope, and they have because it's Chewie's in that scene. Chewie's piloting, and then it's Han and Luke are shooting the.
I think so.
TIE fighter. Yeah. It's very similar, but like it still gives you that. It gives you a different thing, but still nostalgia, and it's what you want.
Yeah,
it's what people want. And so then they get off and they take off and they're off world. So then we get this really fun scene where like this basically they do straws, and so then this one officer is like, okay, you got to tell him, you got to tell Kylo that we failed. And so the guy's like, sir, so we were unable to acquire the droid on Jakku. It was abducted by aboard a YT freighter. And then he just like freaks out and starts raging and like destroying stuff with his lightsaber.
Yeah, he throws a little bit of a temper tantrum, which I'm pretty sure he's too old for.
Yeah.
Yeah. He throws,
and then he force chokes the dude. Yeah, it's like so what were your feelings about the way they depict Kylo Ren? Like,
I mean, in the moment it's humorous because he's just like and everyone's just like and then like there's another one where he throws a temper tantrum and like the stormtroopers are just like back away.
Yeah, they like
when you really think about it, it's incredibly immature. I feel like I'm watching a 12-year-old throw a temper tantrum, and I'm like, I can't take you seriously at all. I hate him.
Yeah, he is petulant.
Like,
he is the definition of petulant.
How about we regroup and formulate a new plan?
Yeah, or something.
Which is what your granddad would have done.
Although, Vader would have just killed people, right? Like he would have just been like,
he would have force choked somebody, but he wouldn't throw a temper tantrum. Well, maybe it's a different type of temper tantrum, but
get Captain Piet on the line right now. Get him on the line. Last time you're dead.
I'm gonna kill him from like from really far away.
Yeah.
I just like Vader more, I guess, but it is what it comes down to. I just don't like Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
I see very little to like about him.
Oh man, there's a lot to hate about Kylo Ren. There's a lot to hate about Kylo, and they do a lot to make us hate him in this film.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of almost commits one of the unforgivable sins in this film.
Well, he also murders his father, which I think is also a pretty unforgivable sin. I don't forgive him at all. I don't care how much you want to shove a redemption arc down my throat. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, and they try really, really hard.
They try really hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
They do.
And it's nothing against Adam Driver. I would just like to say that it's nothing against Adam Driver. at all. I think
his acting's phenomenal.
I think he's very, very good. I think he's very believable. And
Phenomenal.
I think he fits really well into the Star Wars franchise. I just wish he had a better character. I wish Kylo had just been evil. I wish they hadn't just recycled Vader's arc. That's all. That's all I wanted. Just if he's gonna be evil, just make him evil. Why can't we just have a baddie?
Yeah.
Let's just have a baddie.
Yeah. Not everyone can be redeemed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So they're in the ship. The ship is totally jacked up as usual. I mean, in Empire, basically they have a flat tire half the movie. So we're back to the Falcon having issues. So Rey needs to fix the ship. And she's like, okay, Finn, help me fix the ship. Hand me this thing, blah, blah, blah. Do this and that. And then Finn's like, to BB-8, hey, he tells him the truth. Like, look, I'm not with the Resistance. You got to tell her how to get to the Resistance base so that we can, I'll let you leave and all this stuff. But, I'm not actually a part of the Resistance. And then he kind of like, there's this funny thing where he's like, like, what should I do? And then he tells Rey, where it is, it's like, oh yeah, it's the Ilenium system. Like, yeah, it's the Ilenium system. Yeah, and then he like does a thumbs up, and then BB-8 does like a thumbs up with like this lighter or something. It's really funny.
The first time I saw that, I actually thought BB-8 was flipping him off. I actually thought he was just like, fuck you, that was my idea.
I think either way kind of fits.
Either one works, but I genuinely like thought he was flipping him off. Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I told you that shit. Don't take credit for it.
Yeah. Oh my god. I'm
sure he's just giving him a family-friendly thumbs up, though.
Yeah, there's the Disney cut, and then there's the Lily cut. The Lily cut, it's something else. So then Rey's like, oh, I need to. Yeah, I'll send you guys there. Then I got to go back to Jakku. He's like, then Finn's like, why do you want to go back to Jakku? Why does everyone want to go back to Jakku? Do you have a boyfriend? Do you have like a boyfriend or something?
Do you have a boyfriend? Cute boyfriend? I like how he follows it up with cute boyfriend.
Yeah. Like because he's like, if he's not cute, maybe then I have a chance, even if she does have a boyfriend.
He could be cute to her.
Exactly.
He might not be everybody's type, but maybe he's Rey's type.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that happens.
And the Rey's like, none of your business. So then they get boarded, and then they're like, okay, well, let's hide in this thing, and we'll flood the place with poison them. And guess who it is?
Dun, 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 dun.
Thing we see in the trailer, Han and Chewie. Chewie, we're home. They're back. They're back in the saddle. Yeah. And this was like you said, like people got emotional, like just seeing that in the trailer, seeing them back in the Falcon.
Yeah, hearing Harrison Ford say Chewie, we're home was pretty great, but hearing Chewie do like or whatever it is, I can't do a Chewie, but I felt was just like. Love Chewie.
Yeah, it's great.
The amount of shit Chewie has seen and lived through is absolutely astounding.
What he's about to go through in this fucking movie.
Just add it to the list of trauma.
I mean, he's seen everything, almost, right? I mean, he's seen everything. He saw he saw the massacre on Kashyyyk. He then sees his people enslaved. He then has to be part of the resistance to fight the Galactic Empire. They win. And then he sees his best friend's son turn into a fucking Nazi. And then he's following this guy around as their relationship breaks apart, which had to be hard for him because it's not like he didn't love Leia too.
Yeah. Oh no, he loved Leia. He's crazy about it, even though she called him a walking carpet.
Get this walking carpet.
She was really mean to Chewie. Yeah. She was really mean to Chewie in the beginning.
I mean,
But by the time Empire rolls around, you can see that Chewie's like, yeah, she's way smarter than you do. Like,
and they're
when she calls him a scruffy nerf herder, he's like,
yeah.
He laughs at it.
Yeah, he does laugh. Well, because he knows it's right. He is a nerf herder.
I feel like Chewie sees Leia as like a kid sister. I feel like that's how he likes.
Oh well, they're by the end of Empire, they're very close.
Yeah.
Right, they're very close because like
he tells Chewie, like look after her. You know, she can obviously take care of herself, but I think you need to stick with her because you know. Yeah, you need to. Yeah, he says because Chewie's when they're about to put him in the whatever you call that machine. He's like Chewie was basically going to kill everybody. He was going to kill everybody, and he's like, "Fuck it." I wonder if that's also why he's like, "No, dude, you need to protect the princess. Yeah. Like, you don't want to get." I think he's trying to calm Chewie down, and like, you're going to get yourself killed. Like, it's not worth it. Yeah. So I'm going to give you a task to focus on so that
and
you're not
don't worry about me.
Oh my god, yeah. Oh
Yeah.
god, Chewie.
He's seen so much. It's so sad. Like he's
I love
really like, and they didn't give him a fucking medal at the end of a new. I don't know.
No, like that's really racist.
It is. It's speciesist.
That's specious, yeah. Like,
come on, he deserves a medal, and not the bullshit that we get at the end of fucking Rise of Skywalker.
A freaking pigeon in World War II got a medal.
Yeah, I know.
A carrier pigeon in World War II got a medal, and we can't give one to Chewie.
Yeah.
Like, what a crock of shit.
I know. It's a crock of shit. So Han's like, okay, put him on a pod, send him off, and let him go. And they're like, no, you don't understand. Like, this droid is carrying a map to Luke Skywalker, and he's like, oh shit. Whenever I think I'm out, they pull me back in. And then then they get boarded. So there's a ship that boarded the Falcon. Now there's another ship that boarded the ship that boarded the Falcon.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a Russian doll thing. It's like stacked on top of each other.
It is like a Russian doll. And so then they're talking like, okay, we got to figure something out. So you guys come over here. And then they talk about we're hauling Raptars. And it's like, what the hell's a Raptar? It's one of those classics. So like there's always the they derogatorily call it the vagina monster. There's always a vagina monster in every Star Wars.
Yeah, because we just have to degrade the vagina a little bit more.
It's ridiculous. But there's always something that eats things. That's the monster. And so the Raftar is the monster of this one. So Han's like, okay, you guys hide, and I'm going to talk our way out of this. So then there's these two gangs that show up. One thing I want to say is like I really like that they like one of the gangs is these Indonesian guys, and the two actors that they have, they're like phenomenal actors. They were in The Raid and The Raid Redemption. They're phenomenal actors, and it's really cool that they put them in Star Wars. So I just want to give a shout out to that, because I don't think that there's ever been an Indonesian actor in a Star Wars film before this. So that was cool. So there's two gangs, and he's trying to talk his way out of it, but basically he swindled both of them. So they're like, no, you don't understand. Like, this is it, buddy. We're done. And the First Order is going to give us money for the droid. So the jig is up. And even like Han, before this whole thing, he's like, oh yeah, I'll talk my way out of it.
Yeah. And he was just like, I've never even met Kanja Club. And they're like, tell that to them.
Yeah. Kanja Club is right there.
I am glad to see you.
Yeah. About the money. Kaisu Leech. About the money. Let me tell you. Because like Han's like, I always talk my way out of it. And Chewie's like, no, you don't. And he's like, no, every time.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, yes, I do every time.
And so then gets the point a lot in this movie too.
Yeah, he likes like that's his thing, right? That's his thing. So then Rey has this idea. Okay, so what we'll do is I'll blow the switch on the fuses on all these doors. So it'll open I'll open the doors and trap the two gangs. Then it opens all the doors, and it lets all the Raftars out. And so these Raftars are just killing everybody, and it goes super bad. So Finn then gets caught by the tentacle of a Raftar, and it's going to go and take him somewhere and eat him. Rey goes to the control panel, and she times it just right to close a door so that it cuts off the tentacles of the Raftar so he doesn't die. And then Finn's like, oh my god, it had me like the door. It's like, oh yeah, that was lucky. Let's get out of here. So then they get to so Han and crew, everybody, they get back to the Falcon, and they light speed out of the door, basically.
Yeah.
They just hit light speed immediately so that they can escape. But then the First Order is like, hey, the BB-8 unit is aboard the Millennium Falcon, and it's heading here. Yeah. So then Kylo and Hux meet Snoke. So now Snoke is, again, we're kind of replaying a lot of these same tropes. The Snoke character feels very much like an Emperor character. And I think they call Supreme Leader Snoke or some shit like that.
Yeah, so they call him Supreme Leader instead of Emperor, and he also appears as a hologram, and he's also super old and creepy looking, and he's also super dangerous and scary, and he also holds the leash of Kylo Ren. Yeah. And Hux is really up his butt.
I will say that so Andy Serkis does the motion capture performance.
Love Andy Serkis.
Phenomenal. I mean, it's phenomenal. His performance is phenomenal. So, you know, regardless of how the character is sort of like another rehash, he's phenomenal in the role. Yeah. And you can feel the presence and like the way he projects himself and his aura. It's very intimidating and it feels, you know, otherworldly.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. I think Andy Serkis should have won an Oscar a long time ago. Personally.
They should create a category that is basically for him.
Yeah. I mean, he's
digital
pretty much
performance.
Changed the game of motion capture.
Completely. Yeah.
Like immensely. Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. I mean, he should have won multiple. Like he should have won one for when he played Gollum, and he should have won another one when he played Caesar.
Oh, for Caesar, absolutely, definitely. See, he should have won for Caesar. He should have been nominated at least. Like, it's just not. It's like, but the Oscars are fucking rigged anyway. So.
Yeah. So then, you know, they have this conversation, and then basically, you know, Hux is like another thing too is like Hux is like a legitimately kind of scary guy, or not scary. I would say he's a competent person in this film. That quickly changes in the other films.
Yeah, I don't know why they changed his competency. I think so. Kylo looks smarter, but he doesn't. There's even a scene in like I think The Last Jedi when like Kylo's giving orders and Hux is just like repeating them really quickly after. He's like, "No, yes, do that. That was totally mine." And it's like, just shut up.
It's ridiculous. So then basically he's like Hux is like, the weapon is ready, master. Like we can do blah blah blah. He's like, okay, make the preparations. Let's fire the weapon. And then we'll see what the weapon is too. Another thing that we're familiar with. And then we get like a nuclear bomb. This is like, you know, you'll definitely remember where you were when you heard this. The droid you seek is on the Millennium Falcon in the hands of your father, Han Solo.
Dun, dun, dun,
holy shit. Dun. So Kylo Ren is the son of Han and Leia. Holy fuck. And I mean, I'll tell you, people had a reaction to that.
Oh yeah, I remember some of those reactions.
I mean, again, like this is something we've seen before, but it's like, you know, this guy could have been anybody. Could have been anybody.
I think he should have been anybody, but
yeah, he could have been a new character. He could have been an old character. He could have been any, but he's as we'll find, he's Ben Solo. And that's a big bomb to drop.
Boom.
Boom. Whoa, shit. I love the way he says it too. Han Solo. Like the way
he's just so pissed about it too. He's just like, Han Solo. It's just like, have you ever even met the guy? Like, you might actually have a lot in common. I don't know, but it's just like, yeah.
He means nothing to me.
It almost feels like there's a part of Snoke that disdains Kylo Ren. The way he says it. There's almost a part of the way Snoke says it, he's just like, your father. It's like, you are so lucky you were as powerful with the Force as you are. Otherwise, I'd really hate your guts even more. No, it really does feel like Snoke. There's a part of Snoke that is disgusted by Kylo Ren, and I feel like that's an emotional, manipulative, abusive piece of shit. Like there's like, you should be ashamed of who you are.
Yeah,
that's why we're making you into Kylo Ren. You should be ashamed to be a Solo.
Because he's trying to drive that wedge so that he can get him to do what he has to do later and get him to betray his family. Like totally. And he's like, I'll be able to do what I need to do. That's what Kylo's. He's like,
Snoke's just like, will you?
We shall see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Because you're just a fucking Solo on that.
The other thing too about this whole scene with Snoke is like, at first you're like, is he that big? Like, is he a giant dude or something? Like, and then at the end you see, okay, it's a projection. But like at first you're like, what the hell is going on here?
It's a little weird at first, but like, I mean, even cool. The Emperor appeared as like a big hologram at one point too. So
yeah,
I think it's just an intimidation tactic.
Make you feel more powerful. So then in hyperspace, so Rey fixes the ship by bypassing the compressor and all this stuff. then we get this sort of like BB-8 shows them, okay, this is the little piece of the puzzle that I have to where Luke is about, and Han sort of reminisces about, you know, Luke and the Force and all this stuff, and he's like, we get an idea of what happened. So he says Luke was training a generation of Jedi when an apprentice turned on him. Okay, and so the last thing people knew was he was looking for the first Jedi temple, and he's like, you know, the Force is real. It's all true. It's all a thing. Then they come to Takadona, I think is the planet. So this is where Maz Kanata is at. It's this very, you know, lush green planet, and we get this great line from Rey. He's like, I didn't know there was this much green in the whole galaxy. Then Finn's like, oh, hey, Solo. And he's like, did you call me Solo, bro? Like, we're not on that level.
We don't
like...
know each other like that.
You don't get to call me Solo. My wife doesn't call me Solo, so you don't get to call me Solo. And he's like, you know, he's like talking to him or whatever, and he's like, and this is where he says the line, you know, no, you got another problem. Women always find out the truth, always. And then Han offers Rey a job, and she's like declines. She's like, I have to get back home to Jakku, because there's like some kind of family or something. Like she expects that her family is there, and that they're going to come back for her, and she's waiting for them.
That's she doesn't want to not be there when they come back.
Yep. So then they go to Maz Kanata's castle, and so basically she's like the first thing she says is like, "Where's my boyfriend?" Like,
I know, I love it. I love it.
Oh,
Lupita Nyong'o is so great as Maz Kanata. I fucking love her. Where's my boyfriend? Like, it's so cute.
I like that. What did you say? I like that Wookiee.
And the way she says it is like, yeah, she fucking likes that Wookiee, man.
Well, what was that line from Solo? Like she's slept in the lap of a Wookiee before.
You don't know comfort until you've cuddled up in the lap of a Wookiee.
Yeah, she's cuddled up in the lap of a Wookiee. That's for sure.
Yeah, she is. Maz Kanata is all about that Wookiee.
Yeah. So then we see the Resistance and the First Order spot Han and their crew, and so both of them alert their respective factions to the fact that they're on this planet, and so we kind of get that there's a confrontation that's about to happen. So then we see this scene of Kylo Ren praying to the burnt mask of Darth Vader.
It's like, give me the power to be an evil son of a bitch. Give me the power to be an evil son of a bitch. Oh man, I was like,
John yeah. He's such a cringy character, isn't he?
He's so fucking cringe. Oh my god. And the thing is, I wouldn't mind if he had the helmet, if he wasn't being creepy. Like, if he wasn't just like desecrating it. And it's just like, dude, you know the first thing about being a Sith? Because you clearly don't. Like, it's like, I mean, generally speaking, Sith don't like each other. They're usually in competition with one another.
Yeah, it's stab in the back and go up. You keep what you kill. That's their motto.
Yeah.
I will say they're not Sith, but it's not really clear what they are. We think that they're Sith, which is like kind of the confusing part.
I guess I just don't have another word for it. Then I just think it's just kind of lame.
Yeah, it's kind of lame.
Really quick, I don't mean to interrupt, but I really need to go to the bathroom. Do we mind if we take a quick intermission?
Yeah, we can take an intermission.
I will be right back. Sorry.
It's all good.
Don't worry, Ellie. I'll be back. Oof. I have returned.
Okay. Yeah, this is an epic one.
I knew I couldn't wait. I was like,
Yeah, no, it's so weird. Okay, so so then Finn, so like they're at this little meeting with Maz Kanata, and Finn is like, you can't defeat the resistance, it's impossible, blah blah blah, this and that. And then, you know, Maz is like, okay, this guy, he's sketchy. He's gotta go.
Ye of little faith.
Basically. Yeah, exactly. Ye of little faith. So Maz is like, okay, those two over there, they'll trade work for getting you to the Outer Rim. So
it's like, you want a way
goodbye.
out? There you go.
And then he finally confesses to Rey, like, you know, I'm not part of the resistance. I was a stormtrooper, but I'm like kind of in love with you. So, but you know, I don't, you know, I got to be honest.
Or there could be a potential for a really great 3-movie buildup of a really great love story that could culminate in the greatest Star Wars love story since Han and Leia. No.
But Lily, don't you just love the bad boys? Don't you just love petulant children that throw hissy fits and like try to kill people and that are mass murderers and that kill their father? Don't you just love people that are like that?
You know what? Really overrated. Really over. I like a guy who pays his taxes and doesn't murder anybody personally.
Yeah. I like guys that don't kill their father. How about that?
Well, I feel like there's this thing in movies when you have like the bad boy and the nice guy, is that nice guys are somehow not good enough. And it's just, I think it's a really shitty example to set for young women and boys. And it's just, you don't want to date Maverick. Maverick will take you in a plane and crash and kill you both.
Yeah.
You don't want to date Maverick. He is
literally,
irresponsible. Yeah. And I know everybody has to go through that phase of dating not a bad person, but like someone who is inherently not good for you. They're not going to take your feelings seriously. They're not going to keep you safe. Like you want a John Krasinski, okay? Yeah. Like they're not bad guys. Yeah. I mean, you can definitely see the red flag sometimes, or hopefully, but like Kylo Ren is a walking red flag, and it's not. Yeah. You don't want that. But make your own mistakes because you got it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate what they decided to do, because I mean it's like so played out. It's like we've already seen this, and it's doomed, right?
It's doomed.
It's doomed.
It's not.
Because you can't have a dude do this stuff and then like have a world where they can be together. No. Like, nah, homeboy's got to go to jail or something.
No, homeboy needs to suffer some consequences for his patricide, if you will.
Yeah. So then Rey has a Force vision.
I do like the Force vision, yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool. So it brings her to the Luke Anakin saber. Pretty sure this was Anakin's too, right? Because it's the blue lightsaber.
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's Anakin. Yeah. Because this is one. It's kind of funny. Like this whole thing is the whole button on this is kind of funny, which we'll come back to. So then she sees herself like on a First Order Star Destroyer, and then she sees herself. So she's having all these like quick succession of like different visions. She's on the Star Destroyer. She sees Luke reaching out to R2-D2, and there's like a fire. She sees Kylo chop a dude in half, and then it's him and the Knights of Ren massacring people. Then she sees herself as a young girl being held by that fat dude. Like, come here, girl. And then she sees the plane taking off, transport ship taking off, and then she sees herself in a Force, and then Kylo Ren confronts her. So, when I was doing research for this, a lot of interesting things came up. I was just reading different stuff, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So, Ewan McGregor reprised his role as Obi-Wan in the scene. I didn't know that. I had not known that until today.
These are your first steps.
They also said that they had Alec Guinness say Rey.
Yeah, they composited like a whole bunch of different words he had said so that they could formulate the sentence or something like that.
Yeah, they turned away into Rey.
Mm-hmm.
And they also had Frank Oz come back as Yoda to also say a line. So that's interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's a cool choice. At first I was like, oh, does this kind of confirm the Rey Kenobi theory? But maybe not. But something to think about. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how that. We'll see.
It did not.
We'll see how that storyline pans out.
Mm-hmm.
So then Maz basically says like, "Oh, you were drawn to the Force. You have to take this lightsaber." It was Luke's. And we even see her later. She says like one of my favorite, like, such a great throwaway line. It's like, how did you get the lightsaber? Oh, that's the story for another time. That time is still not come yet. We have no fucking clue.
It kind of feels like they forgot about it, honestly. But there is also a lot going on, so maybe they haven't. I would love to see Maz. If they ever do a season 2 of Kenobi, I would love to see Maz show up.
Yeah. I mean, there's in the books, the main thing that they do is they use that hand to clone Luke Skywalker. That's what happens in the books. Yeah. Yeah, that becomes a whole thing. And then I believe they called him Luke with 2 U's. Now, I'll say this. I think the idea of cloning Luke from that hand is interesting. But I don't know. Cloning is like the multiverse. It can very quickly make the story feel irrelevant. Oh, Luke died. Well, we cloned him. Oh, this person died, so we cloned him. So then you start to lose people.
Yeah, it loses its meaning.
Yeah. The stakes just disappear. It's like, oh, well, the guy died, or like they what they did.
So we'll just clone him again.
Yeah.
It's like, why should I care?
What's even worse, what they did in Spider-Man was they said, oh yeah, Peter Parker, he was a clone of this other guy, Ben Reilly. Ben Reilly is the real Spider-Man. And by the way, him and Mary Jane, they're gonna leave New York. They're gonna leave for Oregon, and they're never gonna come back. And now your new Spider-Man is Ben Reilly. That fucking pissed people off.
Was that in the comics?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have pissed me off. I'm like, what the fuck? So why the fuck have I invested in this character? Like,
it's a gigantic middle finger. It's a gigantic middle finger to people. Yeah, disaster. At least they didn't do anything like that. So, anyway, as they say in the hero's journey, Rey refuses the call to adventure.
Yeah. Call to adventure.
She's like, no, I'm not down for this. This freaked me out, and she runs away.
Well, I mean, let's think about it from her perspective too. She's been off world for the first time in her life. She's terrified that she's gonna miss the boat, that her parents are gonna come back, or whoever it was that dropped her off in the first place. So like, she's like, I don't have time for this. I just want to go home. Like, I get it.
It is scary because like she, like they say, the Force Awakens, and she's experiencing things that are totally different, that she's never experienced before, that are scary, that are confusing. And she doesn't understand it. It does make sense that she would at least be apprehensive about fully embrace. And she has no like she has some voices of dudes she doesn't know. She doesn't know who Obi-Wan is. She doesn't know who Yoda is. She doesn't know any of these. It's like now I'm hearing voices. Like, am I fucking crazy?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So yeah, she runs off. So then we get Hux doing, his Nazi impersonation. He gives this speech on this planet, the Starkiller base planet of the First Order.
As if Death Star wasn't on the nose enough. No, we have Star Killer now. It's like we've rebranded. I
will say one thing. I think that the real world of Sadas is that people that are fascist, they're not really like they're pretty open about. Their rebranding is like, oh, fascists. Well, now we're alt right. So the branding is a joke. Like like, you know what I'm saying? Like they're not concerned about having like the branding is only as useful as it is to get people behind them so that they can like do the fascism. They're not trying to be really. They're not trying to sell iPhones here. So then we get this cool thing where we see them use Starkiller based weapon, and it fires out this massive laser projectile or whatever, and it then splits into like 4 parts and destroys 4 planets. So they're on Takadana, and they're like, oh shit, they just blew up 4 planets, dude. Like, this is really bad. Like, what? That's the First Order. And Finn's like, dude, that was the First Order. Like, this is the apocalypse. Then the First Order arrives, and now they're in a firefight on this planet, and they're being basically invaded or attacked, whatever you want to say. So Maz Kanata hands Finn the lightsaber. So another thing too is like, why did we have to like kind of do this bait and switch with like the Finn Force sensitive stuff?
I think Jedi because it was originally planned possibly for him to be Force sensitive, and then they saw Kylo Ren torturing an innocent young girl, and they're like, "That's hot." I genuinely think that. I think it's a room full of studio people were like, "That's so hot. We need to see them fuck. We need to see them fuck each other." And that I genuinely think is why Finn got, relegated to being sidelined and got put on the back burner. And like, yeah, we don't actually care about blossoming young love and how it could actually mean something and it could be really cool. And yeah, we just don't care about that. We'd rather see an adult man torture a 19-year-old girl and have them fall in love.
I mean, it's also like, that's a really interesting idea, this story. Like this guy who is a ex-stormtrooper who became Force sensitive. That's really interesting.
Was always Force sensitive, you know what I mean? Like
exactly.
And it was being repressed by the First Order, who doesn't understand Force sensitivity. They just know that they have to eliminate it. And for him to be that would have been, that's why I'm just like, Rey didn't have to be anybody. Like Rey could have been nobody from Jakku, and it would have meant more because it would have been like anybody can be Force sensitive. You don't need to be part of these lineages that are so fucked up. And it's just like
we can start over.
We can start over. We can have the next generation, if you will. And it's just like, have them start their own lineages, like, yeah, maybe Rey is a little more powerful than Finn is, but it would have been nice to see them train together, their relationship grow. It's just a wasted opportunity. No.
It's so wasted. Like, when you just say that, when you say they train together, I'm like, oh my God, it's so much better story.
It's so much better. Like, they learn from one another, and maybe they have some lightsaber
it's such
battles,
a better
and
story.
Some flirtation and stuff like that, a slow burn over 3 movies.
Yeah.
And then
they're the pillars of the Jedi Order. It's the 2 of them and some other people. Like, no, that's we're gonna throw that in the garbage, unfortunately.
No, instead we have an adult man torturing a teenager.
Yeah.
Which is really gross.
Yeah. The guy who decided to kill his classmates.
Yeah, he literally killed his classmates and just fucked off to be an emo bitch boy. And it's just like, I question the I always question the morals and ethics of studio executives, but this really proved it. This really put a nail in that coffin.
Yeah. So Finn takes up the lightsaber. He fights this in a really cool fight scene with this stormtrooper.
And he holds his own. His own.
He more than holds his own. He like I really, what I like about this is like it shows that they're competent. There's been so much time where they're bumbling and they can't hit anything. They shoot. They couldn't hit the side of a barn. But this dude is like super competent, and he fights with this electric mace, and he like takes Finn out. And if it wasn't for Han and Chewie with the bowcaster blasting this dude out of the sky, just absolutely blasted this stormtrooper. Finn may have been defeated or killed or arrested or whatever. Because they hate Finn too. The other thing too that's interesting is like they all call him traitor. That's his name, traitor. You're a traitor. And oof, man, when Kylo calls him a traitor, like he's spitting at him.
It's personal.
Yeah, he's spitting at him real hard. So and then it's really fun too because we see Han's like, hey, can I use your bowcaster?
I know, I love that.
And he's like, oh, this is really good. This is really
Although
effective.
I find it hard to believe that's the first time he's used the bowcaster. Like they've been friends for that long. I feel like it's not the first time. I find it hard to believe, but it is cute. It's cute.
It's nice. It's like a thing that should have been done before, and it was just a smart idea. Like him using the bowcaster is like brilliant.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So then So they get arrested by the First Order, and then the Resistance arrives. And so we see the X-Wings come down. This is another great, and then there's some great music, some great John Williams. He hits us with that.
There's like the long shot of Poe going around, and like Finn's like, "Yeah, it's the best pilot in the galaxy."
That's a pilot. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's pretty good. I like that shot.
He takes them all out, and so then meanwhile Rey is confronted by Kylo. And he captures her. And he takes her. He's like, "Oh, she knows about the droid, so I'm just gonna extract the information from her." And so he runs off with her. He knocks her out. Force, another thing I'm not sure I've seen before. And Han sees Kylo going onto the ship, and I he plays it so well because it's such an interesting thing. It's almost like seeing your son with, I don't know, man. It's so crazy because he's dressed up, like he's literally dressed up, and he's out there with these fucking Nazis, and that's your kid, and you love him still.
I'm sure to some degree too. He's probably Vader all over again. Like it's probably given him some serious Vader vibes too. Like,
well, he's a Vader cosplayer.
Oh yeah, he's just a Vader cosplayer for sure. Nothing against cosplayers at all. You all do some really amazing things.
No.
But this is disturbing.
Yeah. It's sad. Like that's the kind of powerful thing about it, because like all the horrible things that he's done, and like you said with the Vader comparison, you just think about the things Vader did. And now you know that this guy he's aping off of that, but you still love him because he's still your son, and it's so conflicting. And you're like, what did I do wrong? And that's what parents always think. It's like, what did I do wrong to have the situation play out like this? Was I not caring enough? Was I, all the what ifs?
No, and it's not necessarily what they did wrong. Someone evil just got to a vulnerable kid. Like, that's all it comes down to, is that someone evil manipulated your kid against you. And it sucks, but it's not necessarily your fault.
And the thing is too, like the two of them have so much responsibility. Luke, Han, and Leia. Like Leia had to. She had to be the government. She had to run the government, and otherwise it was going to collapse. And Han is Han, right? And so the two of them are trying to save the universe, and their child is vulnerable. And then the sick evil bastards in the universe preyed on him.
Yeah, and I think a part of it, there's a lot of guilt on Leia's side too, because she's like, I couldn't give him enough attention. I sent him away with Luke. Why did I do that? It's because you had to, because you have an extraordinary child who needs to go to a special school. Sounds like Harry Potter to me. And none of those kids are mad that their parents neglected them. All I'm fucking saying. So maybe Kylo's just a shithead.
No, Kylo does make a choice. He makes a choice. I'm gonna kill my classmates. I'm gonna chop them up. So Han and Leia meet again, and this is kind of cute. And of course, 3CPO comes in. Oh, hello! Look, it's Han Solo.
There's C3PO. Yay! Woo.
Yeah. Oh, you must not remember me because I have this red arm. Like what?
It's like, yeah, we would totally not be able to recognize your voice or anything like that.
Yeah,
I love when he's just like, you changed your hair. Friend. I love that.
Yeah.
When Chewie gives her a hug.
Yeah, Chewie gives her a hug. Yeah. And then he's like, I saw our son, Leia. It's like, ooh. So yeah, and then Poe and Finn meet again, and this was another, this is nice. And then he's like, yeah, you should keep the jacket, it fits you, blah blah blah. So glad to see you with us. And then Finn kind of like, Finn again is like, he's like, okay, I gotta save Rey. so he's like, oh, you gotta. I have this information that's really important. Can you bring me to your superiors? And there's this meeting that he has with Leia, and they're like, oh, we love you, thank you for supporting the resistance and fighting for us. He's like, yeah, but you gotta help me save Leia. And it's like, yeah, we'll do that, but we need some information about how we can best fight this battle.
Yeah, I love that Finn's just like, I need you to drop everything that you're doing to help me save this girl I have a really big crush on, and I'm pretty sure she feels the same way, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be manipulated into something else. But I still have hope.
Yeah. Yeah, just, yeah. Exactly. So then we see Rey being interrogated by Kylo. She calls him like, it's like, yo, you're a creature in a mosque or whatever. And he takes it off, and this is fun. Like, this is so I don't know what it is, man, but like this scene, like there's so many people who are just like attracted to him in this scene.
I don't get it.
Because Adam Driver's not an ugly guy. Like he's a good looking guy.
I don't think he's an unattractive person. I think his character's fucking nasty.
Let's put it this way. He is not a physically unattractive person. He is a child-killing, crazy guy. Like,
does it count if he was technically a child too? I mean, yes, it does.
Yeah. There's
children are capable of killing each other. It's fucked up.
I don't get it. Now, I will say there's I feel like in terms of all the love like the love story tropes, the one that I think is legitimately maybe the most popular is enemies to lovers.
Yeah, because I think that there's definitely some drama and tension to be had there, and I think it has worked in the past. I can't think of anything at the moment. All I get from this though is the Persephone and Hades thing, which I am 100% done with. I'm done idolizing and seeing people romanticize and a grown man kidnapping a young woman and forcing her to be his girlfriend. I'm over it.
Yeah, agreed.
And I'm just tired of seeing it. It's old. It's literally ancient. Literally ancient. Is anybody else sick of this shit? I'm just like, and there's some weird. It's just.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So the other thing too is like another small little thing that happens in the scene is like, so he puts down his mask in this tray of ashes. So the ashes are the ashes of his felled enemies that he's killed with his lightsaber. He keeps the ashes of people he's killed basically at his apartment. He's a fucking psycho. He's a fucking psycho.
That's what serial killers do when they collect a trophy.
Yeah, that's a trophy. 100%. 100. He's a trophy hunter.
I mean, say what you want about Anakin Skywalker. He didn't do that.
No, he didn't do that. And then he says, and this is another. Oh, I can take whatever I want. I mean, there are people who are legitimate. There were people who were legitimately into that shit. Like, okay, whatever floats your boat. I'm not gonna look. It's all fiction.
Exactly.
You get to.
It's all fiction, but once again, it's promoting a very unhealthy relationship that I think young girls and young boys think is normal because they're seeing it in a very popular movie that is marketed towards very impressionable young people, and it is not healthy. It is
like that's disgusting. No, you can't just like we know that that's implicitly a sexual thing. No, you can't just take her, bro.
Yeah, every studio executive just got a boner, and he's like, "Yeah, we need more of this."
Now, look, I will say this: like, there's this thing. Like, there's a lot of things where there are things where you don't get as a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is something when you're young, you probably wouldn't get. Like, what is it? Like, like, especially if you're a young boy, like, he just means he's gonna extract information from her, and he's really powerful. and then, like, you become a man, and you have relationships with women, and you're like, oh, that's kind of fucked up. And you see it differently.
The young men. You hope to God that the young men you're raising will not take it the wrong way.
That's so fair. I mean, sometimes they never grow up and they're just disgusting preteens forever, and they just become more. They idolize him. Maybe that's kind of the even worse thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So then Kylo uses the Force to read her memories, which is interesting, and so he's like kind of showing like, you just going over all the different sort of things that she's afraid of. And then she reverses the power back on him, and it's like, oh, you're afraid you'll never be as strong as Darth Vader. And he's like, oh shit. I've never had someone, fight back. I've never
had someone fight me before. It's so hot.
Yeah. So then there's another meeting with Snoke, and basically Kylo failed because like they were supposed to get the droid, but he was like, oh, I'll just extract information from her. And so then we'll get it that way. And then Hux is like, oh, yeah. So he fucked up. we didn't get the droid because he thought that he could just extract the information from her, but he can't do that. So now they have the droid, and they're going to get the information so that they can get back to Luke Skywalker.
I mean, Hux isn't wrong.
Hux is not wrong. Again, this Hux is like this. It's like a night and day.
Yeah,
night and day. You know, so funny. And then Kylo has to kind of like cover his ass. He's like, and then I like too. Hux like leaves and he like gives him a look like, yeah, I got you, bitch. Because they're like in this little fight for power.
Yeah, they're in some kind of competition with one another for Snoke's fucking adoration or some shit. It's just weird, honestly.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I'd say that's really how it is a lot of the time. Especially like if you're, the thing that gets you killed in any of these, as we've seen in the past, if you're incompetent, you die. If you are incompetent, you die in these organizations, because they'll literally kill you. Like Vader was like, Admiral Piet, you failed me for the last time, you're dead. Next guy up, So yeah, it makes sense that Hux would be very competent, because he has to be. Otherwise, someone's going to kill him, and he's going to be replaced. And then, Kylo tells Snoke, like, oh, she's really powerful with the Force. She's more powerful than you. Like, she needs to be trained. We need to turn her. And he's like, if that's true, if she's this powerful, bring her to me, because then I'm going to turn her and then have her kill you.
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
so then Rey decides to try and use the Force. So she tells the stormtrooper, like, you will remove these restraints and leave the door open. And he's like, what? And she tries it like two times, and the third time it works, and she's able to like control him with the Force. Well, what do they call it? The Force. Oh, I forget what the name of that Force thing is. Anyway, and then she's also like, oh, and drop your gun. And he's like, no, I'll also drop.
Drop your gun, and I'll drop my
gun. So she's starting to like embrace it and starting to like understand what she can do with it. So then the scene that we talked about before, finding that she escaped, Kylo has another hissy fit. He gets pissed and he starts chopping stuff up, and we see these two stormtroopers like, I think we're gonna take the other route. So now that they know that they're in the Ilenium system, Star Killer Base starts to charge. And so they're gonna just blast them basically. And this is a really cool, like, the visual of like, so like there's Star Killer Base, which is this planet, and then there's this big sun, and they're absorbing all this energy from the sun to charge the weapon. So then the Resistance, they're like, okay, they're charging to blast us. We got to figure something out. So they, we get this fun infographic where they have the Death Star, and then they have how big Star Killer Base is. Star Killer Base is way bigger.
So this is a rendering I did last night in class. As you can see, there might be some scale issues, but we can work that out, later. But yeah.
So one thing I'll say about this is that, yeah, I mean, this is totally like A New Hope again, right? It's just another star. It's just another Death Star. Now, what I will say is that original sin was committed by George Lucas. Okay, when he did Return of the Jedi, and they're like, there's a half-built Death Star. And so if they decided that they were going to do it again, right? And to be fair, they made it like, it seems like they made the second Death Star twice as fast. They figured it out. And so then it was just like way faster iterations, thanks to director Krennic. He just never gets what the credit he deserves, that director Krennic.
I'm sure there'll be like some video made about him later on being like, actually, the person who gets the real credit.
I know.
Hidden Figures of Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, then they talk about what's his name, Jalen Urso. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, I mean, they've already kind of committed that sin before, and so it seems like creating this planet destroyer is just in their DNA. They have to do it. They're always going to try it at least once, and this time it did work. I mean, unlike in Return of the Jedi, where they kind of do the surprise attack and it does work a little bit. This one, they legitimately blow up 4 planets. They blow up 4 planets in this movie, and so it's a real threat at least. So they're like, okay, so what we're gonna do is, with the Finn kind of helps them figure out, there's this oscillator that if they attack and destabilize, it's going to basically make the whole planet blow up. So they just need to disable the shields, attack the oscillator, blow it up. They'll destroy the weapon. All right, cool. So then Han's like, oh yeah, don't worry, I'll be able to get us onto the planet. So his plan is to go at light speed through the shield, which is another fun, like sort of like a Han thing, because like he's very creative. It's like that great scene in Empire where he flew at them at the Star Destroyer and then he hid behind the like their command tower.
Mm-hmm.
So they wouldn't see him.
He's very creative.
Yeah. And then he's like, oh yeah, we'll just flood out with the garbage.
Yeah, we'll just flood out with the garbage. I mean, the ship looks like garbage and he knows it and he uses it to his advantage. Yeah.
So their plan works, but then they because they're going at light speed, they crash into the snow. And so kind of basically it's sort of implied that the Falcon's sort of going to be stuck there for a bit. And they're like, okay, so yeah, so what was your job here, Finn? Oh, I worked in sanitation. It's like, you were a janitor? What?
It's okay, we'll use the Force.
Yeah, we'll use the Force. That's not how it works. That's not how the Force works at all. Yeah, so then they get the trio, they get into the base, and they're like, oh, we gotta somehow disable the shields. It's like, oh, I have an idea. So Chewie, he basically, Finn tells Chewie to jump Captain Phasma. They take her. It's like, and then he's like super sad, like, yeah, we got you now. It's like, okay, calm down.
Yeah, I think Han's just like, you can calm down now. It's fine.
Yeah. So they force Phasma to lower the shields.
Yeah, I love it where they're like, what are we going to do with her? And Han's like, is there a garbage disposal? And Finn's like, yeah, there is.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, that's a really good one too. Yeah, I like that.
I love it because Finn has no frame of reference for why Han is asking that, but he's like, yeah, there is.
Yeah, like, but he's worked in sanitation, so he knows there's a monster in the garbage.
Exactly.
So they're both like, yeah, you go down there, it's not going to be fun.
And even Phasma's like, wait, what?
Like, oh god, not the trash compactor. So the resistance, so the shields are down, the resistance come in, they attack the oscillator, and it's a squad of X-Wings. And yeah, I mean, they're met by TIE fighters, and so we get the classic Star Wars dogfighting sequences. So the three of them are going through the base, and they just like randomly see Rey, who's been sort of trying to hide in different places. They see her like escaping somewhere. They're like, oh, because like Finn's like, we gotta find her, we gotta save her. He's like, hey, dude, look behind you, and there she is.
She's pretty resourceful. She's okay.
Yeah. And so then they get reunited, and let's just say that Finn was really excited to get a hug from her. I love that. Like
to see him. She's pretty happy to see him.
Yeah, no, she was very happy, and she was like, starting to tell him about like, oh, I'm learning to use the Force. I don't even understand it, but it's happening. I mean that, like again, like you said, it's such a lost opportunity of like, if both of them are understanding how to use the Force together, and it's something that they both don't understand, but it's happening, and them both going through that journey of like understanding how to use the Force. Like, but instead we have this weird love story with the crazy, like, silly idiot kid who kills people. I don't know.
Yeah, it just would have been awesome to see them like come into their own, learn how to master the Force, and then the final showdown. You could even bring back Duel of the Fates and have it be a 3-way showdown. Like that would have been awesome. Yeah,
the two of them against Kylo or something or someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
But no.
We don't get to have nice things in the future.
No.
Han's like, escape now, hug later. How about that?
Yeah.
So they're about to leave, but then they're like, okay, the resistance, they need help. So their plan is, like, hey, my friend here, he's got a bag of explosives. Like, let's do some damage.
Let's fuck some shit up.
Yeah. So they go into the oscillator facility. Basically, their plan is to blow a hole in it by rigging all these detonators. So they go in there, and Kylo's there. Kylo's there with a bunch of troops because they know. And then, oh man, here it comes. So Han sees Kylo, and then he confronts him on this catwalk, this like bridge or whatever that's over this chasm, basically.
Because why not?
Because
why wouldn't there be a giant? Oh, you don't have giant chasms in your Star Killer facilities. We have 8.
oh my god!
More.
Oh
Where do
my
they
god!
go? We don't know. They're just cool to have. Bad guys always have dark, scary chasms with only one walkway. It's like, what if it gets bottlenecked? What if there's like a whole bunch of people coming through there? I mean, like, what's its weight limit?
That'd be kind of awkward. I would be very very reticent to walk on that thing.
Man, if you got vertigo, you are.
I would not want to go on that thing.
No. So we got the chasm.
Yeah. And so then he confronts him. He's like, Ben. And it's this whole thing. It's like, oh, I'm conflicted. He's like, come back to me, son. Blah blah blah. This guy, he doesn't care about you. He's just gonna use your power, and he's gonna crush you. You need to listen to me. I would know. I would know because of my experience with Luke and Vader and all this other stuff. And your mom. And yeah, Kylo says something. I forget. He's like, "Oh, I need you to help me with this. I don't know if I can take it or whatever." One thing that's really, really interesting too is like there's this light that's kind of shining down on him. There's this pillar of light, and then the pillar of light kind of recedes, and then he kills him. Kylo just straight up kills Han. Just ignites the lightsaber into his stomach and kills him. Because
I hate the fact that they try and do a redemption arc for Kylo, and I would have liked him to have just been straight up evil. Like, you could still have the movie play out the same way it was, but like he's on like the catwalk with Han, and he's just like, yeah, I don't know if I can fight it anymore or anything, and Han's just like, oh, I can help you, and have Kylo be just like, I don't want to. I don't want to fight it anymore, and kills him. Because then you could still have Kylo be straight up evil. He's straight up evil. It's like, I don't want to fight it anymore. And plus, what a meaty, good character it still would have been for Adam Driver to play. Like, to just be just straight up evil.
Well, he does really great in this scene. I think he's really. You can see and feel the tumult in his psyche.
Yeah, and the audience could still have thought, oh, well, maybe he'll turn to good. He hasn't done any. He's killed some people, but he hasn't killed anyone we care about yet, right?
Yeah.
And then
exactly.
He's like, I don't want to fight anymore. I am the dark side. I am the night. And but no, instead we get this.
Yeah, he kills him. And how did you feel when you first saw this?
I was pissed. I was pretty fucking pissed. I was having a really good time up until that point, and I saw it coming. I saw it.
Well, coming. The minute that he walked down on that bridge, right?
Everything was there, and we hadn't had a no yet at that point. So,
yeah. And Harrison Ford wanted him to die since Empire.
Oh yeah, and if you have that knowledge, knowing that he's wanted this character to die since then, like,
it's a little macabre, but but he got what he wanted. He got what he wanted. He got him dead finally. Han is
bullshit,
dead.
but fine.
Yeah. And what's sad too is like, we don't get a funeral or anything. He falls into that abyss and that's it.
Not even a memorial. No. Like even people whose bodies are never recovered, they get some kind of memorial. Like, you do something, but it's just everybody moved on, and except Chewie, who's crying by himself.
Like, yeah. We'll get to that. That's another like really one of like, I think this movie. There's just some choices that could be different. I think that the one you just pointed out with Kylo is a good one. But what they do with like Chewie is kind of like fucked up. It's like he doesn't get a moment. Him and Leia should have had a moment, because like we see Leia feels that Han died.
Yeah.
With the Force, she feels that he died. Oh, my ex-husband, or my husband, the person I still love, probably just died.
The father of my child, like my everything, my scruffy little nerf herder just died.
Yeah.
And it's just, and I'm sure,
and the fact that they don't like him, like Chewie and Leia should have had a moment.
I would have just liked to have seen a moment of them sitting there and him like holding Leia, or Leia holding him. I think Leia holding Chewie would have been like way more emotionally powerful, because he like is obviously the muscle. I think he's even described as that a couple of times. If he's not, we know he is. He's the tough guy. And seeing Leia comforting him, maybe like stroking his head and something like that. And he's like, like, yeah. It's
another missed opportunity in this.
It's just insensitive. Not necessarily a missed opportunity, just incredibly insensitive and careless to the characters. It makes me feel like you don't give a shit about them. And that's what it makes me feel like. So why should I give a shit about your fucking movies? Sorry.
Yeah, it's you gotta, like, this is his best friend who he spent decades with, who he had a life debt. So he, like, that's the other thing too, like, he has a life debt to him, so he kind of failed him, kind of let him die.
Yeah, and just like after he like watches his best friend die, like he like that emotional like wail Chewie has, and I love that he does not think twice about shooting Kylo.
He shoots him right. Yeah,
think twice. He's like, "That's it. You're dead to me. You are dead. Like I watched you grow up from a little kid to this shitty little Nazi. I'm gonna kill you." And I love that Chewie doesn't think twice. I just wish he had aimed for the head, but he was emotional. So he was emotionally compromised. So. He gets him too.
He does, 100%. 100%.
And then Chewie just like, yep, boom. I did. The only thing that I think that what really worried me about that scene the most too, because I felt Han coming, like I felt that coming. I was worried Chewie had blown up. That's what I was really worried about. I was worried Chewie had blown up and not made it out or something.
Yeah, because we don't really see at that point. Then it becomes Kylo versus Finn and Rey. And he goes after the two of them.
Yeah.
So he goes out. Kylo goes after the two of them. There's this like mountainside forest, and basically there's this confrontation where they fight each other. And this is another thing where I think you're kind of bringing up a good point, because like we start this trilogy with the two of them fighting Kylo, but then Finn, he has to go away because reasons. Okay. I mean, it would make sense as a sort of symmetry for them to confront him again, the two of them to confront him again at the end.
Because in the first fight, they both get their ass kicked a little bit. Rey eventually can, kick his ass a little bit, but he's gonna kill him. He's going to kill both of them. Yeah. And like, no, join me, Rey, and blah blah blah. And she's like, no, I can't because you're a gross freaking weirdo.
Yeah. I mean, at the beginning of this fight, he force pushes her so powerfully that she gets knocked out on a tree.
Yeah, and then like Finn has to he takes up the lightsaber and he's gonna kick a little ass, and he doesn't win because he's not as trained. It makes sense that he's not gonna win. Exactly. But like it would have been great. It would have been a great bookend if they had started this fight and that they weren't as powerful, and then by the end of it they are together and more powerful. Yeah. And you still could have had a force bond between Rey and Finn. They just didn't want it because of fucking.
Yeah, it's sad.
Wasted. You wasted John Boyega.
Kylo takes out Finn, like slashes him in the back, like pretty brutal. I mean, and the thing too, I was like, dude, is he dead? Like, I legitimately, I think it was until my second viewing, like they kind of like he's in the bathtub tank kind of shit, but I was like, on the first viewing, I was like, I think this dude's dead. I think he's in a coma. I don't think he's coming back. Because he's left in like bad shape at the end of this fight with Kylo. Bad shape.
Yeah, he gets fucked up.
So then Kylo tries to use the Force to get the lightsaber. And then Rey takes it from him.
And Rey's like, nah, bitch.
I really like this is one of my like favorite moments in Star Wars. Especially like the way that John Williams does the theme here. There's something like there's a horn that comes in that's really like underscores the moment, because it's the Force theme. I think that's the name of it. And yeah, I mean, look, John fucking Williams, man, like he just makes everything feel heightened.
Yeah.
And this is just another perfect situation where the music just elevates the emotion and makes you feel it and understand it, even if nothing's said. So, yeah, and another great score from the maestro. So now when they blew up the charges in the oscillator, there's like a little hole that was made. So now the Resistance pilots are able to make another bombing run and like actually directly attack the oscillator. So Poe like flies in there, he gets in there, he bombs it a bunch of times, flies out, and that's it. Him and BB-8 are able to destroy the whole the whole Starkiller base. So Rey is able to defeat Kylo, and she messes him up pretty bad because like she not only like disables him, but she like kind of slashes him in the face, and he gets this massive scar. Then the ground quakes, and then it separates the two of them, which is kind of convenient.
Very convenient.
Yeah, super convenient.
She pieces out. She's like, "Yeah, I'm done."
Yeah, she's done. So she leaves, and she's like carrying Finn, and then Chewie comes with the Falcon, and they get him on board, get Finn on board, and they escape as Starkiller base explodes. And hey, the Resistance is victorious again. And then so this to me was one of the most perplexing choices that they've made in this movie. So Rey gives Leia a hug when she sees her after this battle's over.
Really, I get why, but she shouldn't have been the one hugging her.
It's
like
just,
you don't know each other. You haven't.
They don't know each other at all. They've never met.
There's no emotional connection whatsoever. How did she even know you?
They have never met.
I get Leia feeling Han die, but she couldn't have known who was with him. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but there's no reason they should have hugged at all.
No.
As far as from a storytelling point of view, they have no context for who. She doesn't know what Rey looks like. Rey could be some alien slug creature that's force sensitive for all she knows.
They have never met.
Yeah, it's just.
I mean, I can come up with a whole bunch of headcanon, but like we said before, there needed to be a scene. That scene should have been Leia and Chewbacca together.
And you could show it at least. You could show Leia and Chewbacca embracing and comforting each other from Rey's point of view, which would have been fine. She could have been like, "Oh, I can see," like
because she felt it too, because she saw him die.
Exactly, yeah. But like for Leia to bypass Chewie and just give Rey a hug makes no sense.
You know what's fucked up? Like, there's a scene, like the next scene. Chewie is by himself crying.
He's literally by himself sobbing. And no one gives a shit. And maybe, I mean, who fucking knows? Maybe Leia gave her a hug because it wasn't Rey's original journey, and she had some other kind of emotional investment in Rey that we didn't get to see.
That got cut.
That got completely cut. And maybe, because there was a lot of people who speculated that Kylo Ren and Rey were siblings. There was a lot of people who were speculating that. And I never truly bought into it, but, Leia giving her a hug. Even Han has a moment where he looks at Rey at one point when they're going to, see Maz Kanata, where I think she's telling him about her past, and he just kind of looks at her like he knows more about her than he should. So it's just, I just think something was cut from her original journey that maybe would have made the hug make more sense.
That makes, I mean, again, like you were saying before, we don't need to make her someone's kid to justify what she is.
True.
But that makes a lot more sense for why people react to her the way that they do, I think.
Yeah.
Especially
all
the
the
older,
force sensitive people.
Especially because let's just propose a story idea where they had a second child, and that child was stolen by some nefarious group, and because they had some plot to then send her somewhere, and then once she has her awakening, turn her evil. If they know that they have another child out there who is a girl, who is their second child, they would probably have this perception of like she could be out there, you know what I'm saying? And so then they would have this feeling like, oh, if there's this other force sensitive person who's out there, that could be our daughter. Yeah, and that would make it make sense why they would have this affinity towards her.
Yeah, or maybe she's Luke's kid, or maybe she's kid who they knew at some point. Like, we don't know, but there are emotional beats that both Han and Leia have towards Rey that are never explained, ever.
No, and No.
I think at one point Kylo explains to Rey that Leia knew she was Palpatine's granddaughter, but I don't actually remember all that well because I thought it was stupid. So I think I just deleted that.
The whole Palpatine shit is ridiculous.
But it's just bad. It's just bad. It's just bad. But yeah, they hug and Chewie's left crying by himself.
It's a bizarre choice, and it's really why does Chewie always get fucked over? Like, he's one of the best characters. I don't like crazy. So then, speaking of characters who have been sidelined, so R2-D2 has just been, what are they, low power mode?
Yeah, he's just been buffering.
He had the blue screen of death the whole movie.
Yeah, he's just had the blue screen of death the whole movie. No, I it still just comes back, and I know people are probably gonna think I'm crazy or something. I genuinely think R2 is a Force sensitive droid, and he's been meditating on all of this shit with Luke. I genuinely think that. There's no other explanation as to why R2 is always in the right place at the right time, unless it's lazy, coincidental writing.
Mm-hmm.
He just happens to be there every single time, and every other droid gets blown away or dismantled, and R2 is fine. Every time. He's a Force sensitive droid, and I believe it. So I think he's just been meditating on that shit.
Mm-hmm. So he comes back online. He then
conveniently
presents. So I had read this interesting thing too about so basically, and this is some like shit that's so deep it's kind of unimportant almost. But basically, like, the way that he was able to, one of the ideas that they were playing around with was that in A New Hope, when R2 goes into the Death Star sort of computer system, one of the things that he did was he downloaded all of their archives. And so some of the information he had was this stuff with this map, some other stuff with like where all these Jedi temples were. Again, this totally gets left. Like, some of it's irrelevant, but some of it could have been interesting in a plot if they, went a different way with trilogy. And so that's kind of where this map comes from. And this is how they map out how to get to Luke or whatever. So it was basically, this is what JJ said, it was like the archives from the Death Star was how he had all this information, which is kind of interesting. And so they complete the map and they find, okay, this is how we find Luke Skywalker. And so Rey is the one who sent on the mission with Chewie and R2. So we get to see at the end, Finn is still alive. He's in basically a bantha tank. Rey gives him a kiss. Oh man. And then she leaves. So then they go to Octo. And Rey climbs these steps. She sees all the little the huts made of stone. And atop this mountain, we get the ultimate cliffhanger. The ultimate cliffhanger where Rey sees Luke. And one of the things that I really like too about this, like the way that they do the CGI in his hand, that's the robotic hand.
It's pretty good.
Is like really, really fucking good. I mean, it's really good. Small detail, but like that was incredible because, again, it's just like taking something and making it so real now. And she holds out the lightsaber to him, and then we cut. That's the end. That's the cliffhanger. And that's the Force Awakens. This is the other thing too, I should say. Like, I remember people who were just absolutely ecstatic and praised this ending too, because it just lifts. It does such a good job of making you want to think about possibilities for where the story could go. Now, the problem with possibilities is that they have to come down to one outcome. And sometimes the outcome isn't what you want. But, you always, that dream, the dream is the thing that keeps us interested in the story.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was the Force Awakens. Like I said before, Force Awakens became the highest grossing film of all time in North America. It was very successful, very, very successful. And a lot of people, were extremely excited with where this was it. It was back. Star Wars was back. Yeah. Any thoughts? Any feelings?
I loved it when I saw it. I thought it was great. I was really excited to see Luke back again, and I was subsequently extremely disappointed. So, but it left on a very good note, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much potential. Like obviously, the first thing that comes into our head is thinking of him training Rey, the same way that Luke was trained by Yoda. Why was Luke not around? What was he doing? Yeah, there's a lot of potential there. One last thing I just wanted to, because like, we've talked a lot about, what was happening, what were the ideas that they had for the trilogy. Another thing that I came up when I did my research was that basically something like Daisy Ridley had said that like basically JJ had written drafts of scripts and ideas for 8 and 9, and so it seems very apparent to me that JJ had an idea of where he would go with the full story. And because of, whether that was good or bad, like there was at least one idea. And so one of the things was like, one of the problems was like every person along the line had a different sort of idea. I mean, as when we talk about the next film, Rian Johnson had a very different idea than JJ, just fundamentally very different idea of where he wanted to take things. And that sort of the discordant nature of how everyone who took the next film went along with the process, I think was another detrimental part to it. And it's unfortunate too, because like, I feel like they started off on a great first step. The first foot was, there's so much potential.
Yeah.
But they just made some choices that didn't lead us to get the best story that could have come out of it.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's anything else we want to talk about. This has been a very comprehensive sort of discussion. Okay, so do you want okay, I'll just leave this to you, and I'll let you decide if we want to talk about this or not. Do we want to at all talk about the accusations of the Mary Sue kind of shit?
We can. I feel like little bit. I am gonna have to eat at some point because I could probably talk about it for a while.
Okay. So I'll just sort of summarize it as quickly as I can.
Okay.
Just to kind of like, so we can. So a Mary Sue. We should talk about what a Mary Sue is, where this term came from. It's a term that came from fan fiction, and so I think the best way to sort of understand it and describe it is like, let's say that I'm a person who loves Star Trek. I love it. I think it's the greatest thing ever. And I want to create a story where I'm in Star Trek. And not only do I want to be in Star Trek, but I kind of like I want it to be totally, I want it to be where like Kirk and Spock and McCoy are like in love with me. And so I write that story. Okay, but that's interesting from my perspective, but like from the outside perspective, like that's not really an interesting story because, and then the other part of it too is these characters are very flawless because they're not infallible. They're good at everything they do. They pick up on everything right away. They're immediately likable. Everyone is their friend. There's no conflict. There's generally no conflict. There's no conflict because it's just a power fantasy of the author because they want to see themselves in this world because they love the character so much. But there's a lack of any narrative tension because it's like, okay, it's just you, the protagonist, the author protagonist, just doing everything and everything loves you. It's a boring story. So that's what a Mary Sue actually is. Now, it kind of got attributed to like sort of female characters in general at this point in time, and also characters that I guess you could say are just too good at a thing. But a Mary Sue, it's more than that. It's a character who's also inserted into a pre-existing narrative with pre-existing characters. Now, some of these things kind of do line up with Rey because she is a new character put into an existing franchise. She is seen as being very competent at some things, not everything, but some things. And she's definitely liked by a lot of the characters. But I wouldn't really say that she's a Mary Sue by that definition. I would just say that because the thing you have to understand in Star Wars, there's always a protagonist character who's super competent. Same with Luke, same with Anakin. Especially Anakin. I mean, Anakin is like the ultimate Mary Sue, Gary Stu. Like he's like, was he like 9 or something? In
and he wins a pod race, like which is basically fucking Formula 1 racing where you would get your head cut off. Like it's not. Yeah, I would say Anakin fits the bill more, which I think pisses people off. Because a Mary Sue can be used in a derogatory way towards just a smart character. The thing about Rey is that she she's very good at what she does when the setting calls for it. When she is fixing something, when she needs to be scrappy, when she needs to hide from something. The bitch has spent probably a long time hiding from people who want to kill her. So I don't necessarily think she fits the Mary Sue bill entirely, because when she picks up a lightsaber, she's guessing at how to use it. When she picks up a screwdriver, she knows how to use it. So
yeah,
I feel like I do think she probably learned how to use the Force a little too fucking quickly. But she's also, we also don't know what her ultimate purpose was, which does explain why she can use it better in the beginning.
Yeah.
So I don't think she fits the bill entirely. I think people, once again, are using a moniker that they don't fully understand.
To attack a female character.
Yeah, to attack a female character, which they love doing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think there's probably been other characters that fit the bill much more prominently.
And like you said, Anakin, not only does he win the pod race, but then he saves the day.
Yeah, he saves the day. He wins the race, and he's literally a 9-year-old. Oh, he's this boy genius wonderkin. I'm just like, he's a malnourished slave boy.
But that's believable. But a girl who we've seen has to be very competent at survivalism, because she lives on a planet where she has to scavenge and to protect her life.
In order to eat.
Yeah.
In order to eat, she has to scavenge and shit like that, which she's been doing since she was a little kid, because her guardian was Unkar Plutt.
Yeah.
So daughter basically, you can't unless you go inside that scary Star Destroyer where you're probably gonna get tetanus and lose a few limbs. So yeah, get your little ass in there. It's just a way to attack smart female characters. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And it's just and the thing is, I don't want to bash anybody who writes Mary Sue fan fiction, because if you want to do it, then do it. That's fine. That is totally fine. I think people
and honestly, it's so the thing that brought up in a discussion about this was like the Mary Sue stuff is like imagine a person who's disabled or something, or they're not neurotypical, and then they insert themselves into that narrative. They're doing that because they're never going to see that story.
I was going to say they do it because they don't see themselves on screen. Yeah. It's only recently that there's been actual disabled people in Star Trek. There's an actor, he's played several Klingons. I forget his name. That's escaping me at the top of my head. But he has ALS, and they wrote his character to be disabled. And it was really great because people don't see themselves like that. People don't get to see themselves in mainstream movies and stuff, actually being an important, integral part of a story. And it's just... So that's why people write Mary Sue fan fiction, because they don't get to see themselves.
And I think that's such a strong point, because they're just using that as a way of attacking this character that is someone else seeing themselves as the protagonist in the story. Yeah. Where they're always used to it being the young white boy, basically. But both previous trilogies, it was the young white boy who was the protagonist. And now, it's the young white girl. It's basically the same, but it's a woman. And then they attack her.
And that's the thing. It's just what do you want your female characters to be then? Just dumb? They just always need to be saved? I don't see anyone calling Leia a Mary Sue.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody daring to call General Organa a Mary Sue. And it just...
It was like when we were talking about Prey. They called that character Mary Sue. It's dude, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
You don't know what you're talking about. They're just using it out of context, and they don't know what it means. They don't know what it means, and that's what pisses me off. If you knew what it meant, you wouldn't have said it. Then just say you don't like strong women, or just say you didn't like the movie. Well, you don't need to tear down an entire gender or whatever just to make yourself feel good about getting clicks and views.
Yeah.
That's all you're doing it for anyway. But
no, totally. And again, like you were saying before, it's a part of the story is that there are some people who are very Force sensitive, and they quickly learn how to use the Force. The same with Luke, same with Anakin. And
There's a moment in The Last Jedi, I think, where those little kids who are like the slaves or whatever, and they're playing with their little toys and they're telling stories and shit. There's like the final shot is a little boy using the Force to grab a broom.
Yeah.
And nobody got pissed. Nobody got pissed. Even though it's again a small child who's just like, whoop, little broom. It's like, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so that the only thing I will say is like I think they did so again, like the hugging Leia stuff, they shouldn't have done that kind of like that. And like also one of the things that's really interesting is like they depict her as being able to speak basically every language. Those are the only things to me that are like kind of like I don't know why I don't think they needed to really do that. But otherwise I definitely wouldn't say she's like a Mary Sue character. I mean she's just the same way that you would have any protagonist character in any Star Wars film who's going to be the protagonist of a trilogy. These are the things that they have. They're very strong with the Force, and that strength in the Force, and they get strong quickly, and that strength allows them to do all kinds of incredible things. I mean, Luke, we never see him fly in a plane, and then he's flying the X-wing, and then he uses the Force to blow up the Death Star. Something that is basically impossible.
That flying a freaking X-wing when all he's probably had is his little fucking models and shit. Yeah. But he suddenly knows how to fly an X-wing, but nobody's mad about that. Nobody's mad that he can just do it. Nobody's mad that he can suddenly just shoot TIE fighters out of the freaking sky without ever having set foot in the Millennium Falcon before or know anything about its technology. Fucking crazy. Who's the Mary Sue now, bitch?
I know. Yeah. But the whole point of Star Wars, like the first film, is he's in the trench, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi says, use the Force. The whole point of this entire thing, all of Star Wars, is to use the Force. The Force is the most powerful thing. If you learn to use the Force, you can do incredible things that you could never do otherwise. That's the whole point of this entire story.
Yeah, then why have the Force if no one's going to use it? It's like, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I think that kind of summarizes it well enough. No, she's not a Mary Sue, and y'all need to just stop attacking the character.
Yeah.
Because they're all Mary Sues then.
Yeah, then they're all Mary Sues, and who cares? Because
so is Luke, so is Anakin. Okay. All right. So yeah, I think that about covers everything we want to talk about. This has been a nice, comprehensive conversation, like I said. And yeah, thanks a lot, everybody. Take care, and may the Force be with you.
Live long and prosper.